What is up, wrestling fans? Welcome to episode number 669. Nice episode of the Smark and Smack Talk podcast, hot tags of the week. We are going to be running down all the rumors and news and gossip and TV recap and spoilers and so on and so forth that happened in the world of pro wrestling that we feel like talking about from the past few days. If you don't know already, I am Tony Mango, joined as always by Robert E. Felice.
Hello.
And Callum Wiggins.
At least buy me dinner first.
Yeah, I mean, you got to wine and dine and 669.
And the leftover 6.
Yeah. We are, of course, also joined by all of you listening. Thank you for tuning in. We always want to know what you have to say, so drop your thoughts in the comment section below on YouTube, or if you're listening elsewhere, you can have all sorts of different comments all over the place. Make sure you join our Discord server. That's a great way to talk about anything in the pro wrestling or Fanboys Anonymous sphere. You know, it's a channel for that one too, but if you're on Facebook, you're on Twitter, you're on the page on smarkandmoment.com, there's comment sections all over the place there. And of course, if you are on YouTube, then make sure that you click on the subscribe button, the notification bell. Make sure you hit the like button on this video. Double check that you are on the whatever different tiers that you want to join on the YouTube channel membership by clicking on the join button. If you are on the $5 and up tier, you get early access to different content. And, it's the ad block forgiveness tier essentially, but you also have the Darkcast tier. You've got the pick your poison tier. Even $1 a month helps out a great way, and the thanks button is another means to do that. And if you're not as big of a fan of the YouTube side of it, but you like the same concept, patreon.com/smarkoutmoment is another way for you to do that. Redbubble is where you can pick up the merchandise. Also, TeePublic is another one for that. And anything you guys do on that front is greatly, greatly appreciated. Thank you for keeping the lights on here. And okay, plugs pretty much out of the way when it comes to that. We'll round that out later on, but let's get into these hot tags here, and let's start with something that isn't an immediate hot tag, but it's something to keep in mind for the future, and it seems like it's going to be something that we have to keep in mind for all the future going forward. We had already known that SummerSlam in 2026 was going to be a 2-night event, and now we've gotten our confirmation that we assumed was going to be the case when we were talking about that however many hot tags ago. Now we know for sure SummerSlam 2025 is also going to be a 2-night show. It is going to be August 2nd and August 3rd, and it's going to be at MetLife Stadium. So if the tickets aren't exorbitantly...
in New Jersey, by the way.
Yeah, they're actually referring to it as New Jersey instead of MetLife Stadium in New York, where you're like, that's East Rutherford, New Jersey, pal. But if the tickets are halfway decent, I might end up trying to go, but based off of the price tickets of WrestleMania 41, where I'm seeing that the row 1 tickets are $50,000, I don't know if I can assume anything other than some exorbitant amount of money like that for SummerSlam, and obviously if that is the case, I am not even blinking an eye at no for that. But a lot of people, of course, messaging me being like, oh, are you going to get together for that or something? Yeah, I'm going to try to, maybe. MetLife's not that far away from where I am. 2-night SummerSlam is something, again, we've talked about this before with the idea of yay or nay. There's pros and there's cons to this. I think I, more than anybody else, am more on the pro side. I think that probably Rob is the most anti against it, and Callum ultimately doesn't care too much in the grand scheme of things. But I don't dislike the idea of SummerSlam being 2 nights. My issue is more so I don't know if that's going to take away from WrestleMania being special.
So, like, I get that everybody thinks that I'm just like, oh man, damn, more shit to cover. And like, that's part of it. But I was explaining this to a friend. My immediate feelings are, wow, it's just crazy how much things are changing. And I immediately feel that nostalgia of like, I don't like how things are changing, you know? So I guess like that's my first thought overall, because, you know, things really are changing, and it's just crazy. Like, it's in the beginning of August and it's 2 nights. And I do think that there's a little bit of overkill there. You know what I mean?
There certainly can be. I mean, we've looked at these past few years of WrestleMania, and sometimes it's just like you can't have enough matches on the card because there's like, well, even if we had a third night, we probably would be skipping some people. And then there's been some other WrestleManias where it's like, all right, well, we're really stretching this to try to get 2 nights out of it. And SummerSlam might end up feeling like one or the other of those. It's, we're way too far out to be able to tell now. But what do you think about this 2-night thing, Helen?
Well, as you rightly pointed out, it probably won't affect me in any real way because I wouldn't be watching if it was a 1-night thing, let alone a 2 nights. I get the idea of the oversaturation. I think that you always have like this uphill battle with the 2-night show you don't face with the 1-night experience. There's always going to be now comparison between the night 1 and night 2, so you kind of have to try and... So there's always going to be, I guess, some air of disappointment around the show in some weird way, in the same way that all the 2-night WrestleManias have been, because there's always been one night of the 2-night WrestleManias that's definitively better than the other night. So you kind of like have this weird experience coming out of these shows because you feel like, oh, like that part was really good and this part was really bad, and they all seem to bad stuff seems to happen in one place and all the good stuff seems to happen in the other. So you can't even like fully enjoy it as a experience because even if the shows on the whole are both good, one of them's better than the other, and so you just wish, oh, couldn't it all just been on the one better night and we can go home earlier? So, but I understand the financial benefits you do. At the end of the day, WWE and most of wrestling and sports and everything about that nowadays is just a content generation factory.
Sure fucking is, and that's the part that I hate.
Yeah, but that's unfortunately the world that we live in, and that's not just a wrestling thing, that's not just a sports thing, that's an everything. It's
Sure
like
is.
it's all about trying to create as much content as possible for as many platforms as possible, and this will just be another example of that happening. And yeah, they'll make ludicrous amounts of money off the back of it as well, so that's probably the big incentive over everything else.
I feel like with that being a 2-night thing, it's almost a guarantee at this point. One of those nights is headlined by John Cena.
Oh, that's right. That's something to look forward to.
So whether that's, he's defending the championship, if he ends up like, winning that along the way, or he ends up just having a really like high profile match against like a Randy Orton or something, or maybe that's when we get like Punk and Cena as like this big, we'll do the WWE or World Heavyweight Championship on night 1, and then night 2 is going to be the big John Cena match or whatever. I'm going to put that prediction out there way in advance that John Cena's headlining at least one of those nights, and then one of the world titles is going to headline the other one. And
I would put it like this: if they're going to have like two night shows this year, both for WrestleMania and SummerSlam, and not one of those matches is headlined by a women's match, then that's not going to reflect well on them.
I would put out the prediction that it's almost guaranteed that the 2 nights are not going to be.
I would never be so brazen as to say it's guaranteed, because you just never know what will hit. Like, you couldn't have told me, a year ago that the big thing coming out of Raw in September 2024, the Jey Uso wins IC title. You never know what's going to hit or who's going to hit.
I mean, it's always a possibility, but the likelihood is very low. Look at how many women's matches have headlined WrestleMania since the initial triple threat. 1, I believe, right?
Yeah, that was the 35 one, but I mean, pretty much.
No, it's just the Bianca match, right?
Mm-hmm.
Did nothing else?
No, nothing else.
Yeah. So if they didn't do it for Becky and Rhea and all the other options that they would have had before, and I don't anticipate it's going to be this year either. I figure when it comes to Mania this year, depending on how they structure the card, you got like Roman, Rock, Cody, Gunther, Cena, all these other big names. At some point, 2 of those are going to take priority over. Again,
though, like at any point in time, Charlotte versus Bianca is the main event of any pay-per-view, including a Mania. I'm just saying, like, I'm not saying that you're wrong. I'm just saying
it's not a guarantee.
It's not a guarantee.
Yeah.
Oh, that wasn't a prediction. I was not predicting that.
No, yeah, what Callum said was right.
What I'm saying is,
you're saying they should, at least.
So like I think that they should get like, and they won't, because they're still in this super hot period where they can't do wrong for doing right. It's more of a case of like they should get some blowback for, like, you're now doing these multiple shows with multiple main events. Why are you still so reluctant to put the women in the main event of any show?
See, I agree and I disagree with it, because to me that starts getting into the territory of you should be positioning the women better in, more like significant positions. Fully agree. But then when it starts to feel like it's a forced thing where it's like, well, you need to meet the quota, then we start having that discussion again of like, every year when we get to like the Money in the Bank or Elimination Chamber, and usually it's Rob that's like, we don't need a Women's Royal Rumble this year or something. Like, so to me, it's like, it shouldn't be a guarantee one way or another. It shouldn't be like, all right, well, we have to mandatorily do that. But you would hope that they would be in a position where at least the discussion would be like, oh man, by the time we get around to Mania and SummerSlam, that like a Rhea Ripley match or something would be like, if it's not one of the main events, that you would be like, wow, that really should have been,
Well, hold on a minute, because before Tony just wildly threw me in front of moving traffic, I'm pretty sure I haven't said we don't need a women's Royal Rumble this year. I don't like the idea that women should just go inside Hell in a Cell because women should enter Hell in a Cell. Like, I don't like that as a concept. I do think, hey, this feud has been built up well enough to be put inside Hell in a Cell. However, to Callum's point, I will say, at this point, they need to start building these women like they're good enough to headline Mania, because like that should be a goal of yours when you're a different kind of business and you can just create that content to make it look that way. But who knows? Maybe there won't be 4 bloodline matches to take those spots away.
Well, I mean, when you have the discussion about if the opener is just as much of a main event, then, they figure out ways to kind of mess around with that and justify it in their own ways and all. I would say, though, I'll put it out as a flat out prediction. I do not anticipate that we are going to get a women's main event for either Mania or SummerSlam. I'll be very surprised if we end up doing that. And I won't be disappointed if it's the right call. I don't want anybody to misconstrue that. I want the best matches that are worthy of the main events to be the main events, whether that is something like the tag team match from Mania of the Usos and Sammy and Kevin. Like, that felt like that needed to be that main event. So it's like, yeah, go with the tag team titles. You don't need to put the World Heavyweight Championship on. You could do that the first episode of first match of the first second night. Like, it should dictate, the main events should be dictated by what's the hottest the day of the show. And I just fully anticipate one of those nights is going to be John Cena, and the other night's going to be a men's championship. And we're going to see by the time we come around to SummerSlam, but we don't even know what's happening for Crown Jewel, let alone we get into WrestleMania and SummerSlam and all that kind of stuff. But it is going to be a 2-night show, and that has its pros and its cons. Like we've been saying, like if you are a fan of that 2-night concept, I'm more of a fan of the 2-night concept than I would rather them not go back to a 1-night WrestleMania. But I don't know if I really like it extending into SummerSlam, because then I'm like, all right, well, how long is it going to be before we get into the Royal Rumble as a 2-night one? And then it's just night 1 is the women's Royal Rumble and night 2 is the men's. And then how long until we get Money in the Bank is also a 2-night one, where one night is the men's Money in the Bank and one night is women's Money in the Bank. And then the Survivor Series. So, okay, well, one night is going to be a world title match and one night's going to be a War Games match or something. I don't want it to be a standard that it's 2 nights for everything. And there's a slippery slope, but if they keep it to WrestleMania and SummerSlam, I'll probably be okay with that. I don't know. But hey, it's a MetLife, so maybe I'll go. We'll see. Certainly can't afford it, most likely. So maybe I'll find some kind of means to get like a press pass or something. Any other thoughts on this topic before we move on?
Yeah, we didn't mention it. The commercial was fucking cool. Cardi B and Bianca Belair makes it feel, modern, makes it feel like they're in touch with today. And I thought that was a really strong move for them.
Actually, I didn't see the commercial. It's
Yeah,
just Cardi B being like, "I am Cardi B," and
the commercial featured Cardi B calling Bianca Belair and saying, I got 2 words for you, SummerSlam. Bianca goes, pretty sure that's 1 word, and then she goes, MetLife, and Bianca's like, hell yeah. And I thought, like, okay, that got so many people excited for this. So
MetLife is 1 word too.
Yeah, MetLife is 1 word, so 2 words are SummerSlam.
So it's SummerSlam MetLife.
Yeah.
And then you add stadium. Look at me poking holes. Yeah, I guess that's going to be one of their big strategies going forward too, is take a popular celebrity in some kind of fashion, whether it's like a sports person or it's a musician or whatever, and just kind of attach them to there, and hey, we're going old school again, because it's not like they didn't do that before. So if it works, it works. Can't deny it. I'm sure some people are going to be paying more attention to that now just because of that. I am not a Cardi B fan, so to me that doesn't do anything whatsoever. If anything, it hurts. But let's pick a number between 1 and 5. What are you?
5.
All right, let's switch over to New Japan Destruction in Kobe 2024 event. I haven't looked at the card at all. I'm not planning on watching it, but we should run down some of the possibilities of what can happen here, just because that, there's always a chance that this could factor into things like Wrestle Kingdom and Dynasty and all. And Callum, I think I'll pass it over to you if you know more about this than I do, obviously.
Well, I've got the card in front of me, so I can just run down everything. So the first 4 matches are pretty much irrelevant because there's no titles, and it's just the New Japan way of doing things, where it's just, okay, just throw a lot of teams and matches together that aren't, like, don't have any titles for stake, but might lead into matches further down the line. So I don't think we even bother talking about those ones. The only one of any interest is probably Hiroki Goto versus Gabe Kidd, because it's just a singles match. It's not for Gabe Kidd's New Japan Strong title. So I guess if Goto were to beat Kidd, then maybe that would set up a title match at a future show. But the first title match is for
I don't even know most of these. Well, no, I wouldn't say most. I wouldn't know about like a third of these names. Like, I don't know. Ryusuke? Is that how you pronounce it? Ryusuke Taguchi. Yeah, I don't know that name. I don't know Dragon Dia. I don't know Tomoaki Honma.
Well, Taguchi's, well, guys like Honma and Taguchi have probably been on every single New Japan card for the last 15 years or so. So
yeah, but I never watch them. So.
No. Well, yeah, but it's we'll just go from the title matches then. So we got a never open weight 6-man tag title match. Hiroshi Tanahashi, Toru Yano and Boltin Oleg against the House of Torture crew of Evil Show and Yujiro Takahashi. So, it's a never open weight tag title, so they can always switch hands to whoever, and it's the House of Torture guys that are there. So I was like, there's nothing that's really told me one way or the other which way this is kind of going. I know that House of Torture have suffered a bit of setback because of Renarita getting injured recently. There's been a few injuries hitting New Japan the last couple of weeks and months, so maybe they'll hand the titles over to them because they like their House of Torture and they can just throw them into the middle of the card in matches moving forward. But I don't know. I think they'll just keep the titles where they are at the moment.
Yeah, they'll probably keep the titles where they are.
Then after that, you have the IWGP Junior Heavyweight title, Dookie defending against Yoshinobu Kanemaru. It's funny because they were both in their old stable of like Suzuki-gun at the same time, like a year or so, a couple of years back. And then they were both part of the original Justified Guys faction before Kanemaru defected over into the House of Torture. I would like to see Dookie retain. I think he's doing some good stuff. Like, as I say, it's not very spectacular, basically, but it is just good to see, a title match for the IWGP Junior Heavyweight titles that doesn't involve either Hiromu or El Desperado. not that they aren't the two best like people in the division. It's just a case of it gets a bit stale when it's always one of those two that's either holding the title or fighting for the title. So, but I'd imagine that Dookie will retain. Kanemaru is not really like a top guy for the junior division. I don't see him winning the title.
I have no idea what the hell is going on when it comes to that.
Well, Kanemaru's 48 years old. I think it's unlikely they're going to throw the junior heavyweight title onto him. Like, Dookie at least is like in his early 30s. Like, not that should really dictate everything, but I think it's unlikely that they'd put a title on like a veteran like him when they probably have plans for Dookie to hold the title going into like, or at least like a bigger show than this to defend the title.
Is there like an equivalent show of what this level of this one be? Was this like a B level kind of one for them?
I'd
I know it's obviously not like a Dominion or
I'd say it's closer to like a C level show, really. Like the only reason why this show is probably getting any notoriety is because there is a world title match on it. But yeah, because the next show that's coming out, like the King of Pro Wrestling show, which will have like the Zack Sabre Jr. title opportunity for when he won at the G1, I'd imagine that would be more of equivalent, like maybe sub A, probably closer to B show. Whereas like the only A shows in New Japan are Dominion and Wrestle Kingdom, so this one's probably quite far down the ranks, really. But then you have like a Never Openweight Championship match, Hanare versus Shingo Takagi. It'll be good because Hanare and Shingo Takagi always have good matches with each other. They have great chemistry. It'll be a physical, like, as hard as they can hit each other match. But again, it's pretty uninspiring because Shingo is just always fighting for the Never Openweight Championship. So
I think it's one of my favorite belts in the company, though. But it's like synonymous with Shingo. I think, has he held it the most? He's definitely fought for it the most.
I don't know if he's I think he probably is one of the if not the most winning person ever of it. So Tomohiro Ishii is the person that's held it the most, but he hasn't held it for a long time, and Shingo's number 2 behind him. So, or in terms of combined days as champion. So yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if he won the title because it's kind of his belt in this era of the title, but I'd like to keep it on Hanare because you get a younger guy, a bit more exposure with the title belt. If he carried it into Wrestle Kingdom, that would probably mean a lot more than just having Shingo win it to just give Shingo another reign with the title.
Is this fact true? I'm looking at the Never Openweight Champions list. Is this Tomohiro Ishii, number of reigns, 6. Combined days, 514. Combined defenses, 6.
Well, New Japan always go based on New Japan's the kind of marker of a good title reign is based on the number of defenses rather than the number of days that you held the title.
But I mean, it seems like almost everybody on this list, they defended it one time and lost it the second time.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, a lot of them do that. Yeah. Well, I'd say they don't defend the titles very often. They'll usually just like there's usually like a month or 2 stretch in between title defenses at the very least. But,
see, that's something that I can't get into when it comes to New Japan is like, it seems like it's predominantly, the whole focus is just titles and you're just fighting for a title. But then if the title isn't defended all that often, what are they doing in the meantime?
Well, they're just doing like house shows and things like that.
Yeah, that's where I'm like, the disconnect for me. Like, I'm very much more into the storyline character stuff as it is, but that's something I don't want to see AEW go more into. Where it's, we're going to talk about that when it comes to a championship. I'll hold off on some of my discussion on that. But are you thinking, is this the second title defense for Hanare? Because then by that logic, he's probably going to lose, right?
Oh yeah, I mean, I believe this is his second title defense of it. I think he's defended it successfully once already. But they might decide they want to give him a slightly longer reign. So he's held it for 100 days so far, which is it's a decent stretch of time. He's had 1 defense in that time. So yeah, as I say, there's a good chance that Shingo wins it because it's just the title that's synonymous with him right now. But But I would like to see Hanare hold it more and hold it going into Wrestle Kingdom, because he's done, he's been with New Japan for quite a long time, and this is the first time he's really been pushed as a singles guy. So I wouldn't like to see it just end when he's so close to Wrestle Kingdom.
I would like, and I know like these promotions have too many belts as it is, but I really like this title. To me, it feels like a definitive, like tertiary, kind of, I won't say hardcore, but it's kind of just like a tough man kind of belt. I like the framing of the Never Openweight title.
Then in the penultimate match, we've got David Finlay defending the IWGP Global Heavyweight Championship against Yoshihashi. This is very easy to predict. David Finlay's going to retain the title. They're not going to put the title on Yoshihashi. Like, Yoshihashi is a firm C-tier kind of wrestler, very much a tag team guy nowadays with Hiroki Goto, so there's zero chance that David Finlay's going to drop the title to him. And yeah, the Global Championship continues to be a bit, underwhelming since its introduction.
Yeah, I don't know what was wrong with the U.S. title. You wanted a fucking U.S. title. You wanted to be in the U.S. U.S. title was fine. I don't know why they made this global title. By the way, it's confusing. If it's a global championship, why isn't it a world championship? That's
what I've always said about those different names, yeah.
But, whatever. I agree. It's been completely underwhelming since its creation.
Yeah. I mean, he won it back in May against Nick Nemeth, and he's held it for, we're going on, close to 150 days. He's only defended it once so far. So yeah, I imagine this will be a second successful defense, but it's not really anything too exciting about it. And then in the main event, probably I'd argue slightly less predictable, but pretty obvious which way it's going. Tetsuya Naito defends the IWGP World Heavyweight Championship against the Great O'Khan. Yeah, obviously, I'm about 95 to 99% certain that Naito's going to retain the title. But there's always just the hope, not hope, but the
possibility.
Yeah, possibility that his legs just give out in the middle of the match, and they have to have Great O'Khan win the title. One of his legs just falls off during the match, and so they've got to give Great O'Khan the title to go into it. But I imagine that the match they want to do is Naito defending it against Zack Sabre Jr. on October 14th in the King of Pro Wrestling show. So this is just a way to, Great O'Khan beat Tetsuya Naito during the G1, so he earned a title shot, and they're just getting that out of the way here. It's good. It's a means of elevating Great O'Khan to being able to compete for that sort of championship. He's already the King of Pro Wrestling champion, but the King of Pro Wrestling is kind of is a gimmicky title. But yeah, it just means that he gets to invent a show, gets a bit more experience like that under his belt, and then he'll just inevitably lose to Naito, and Naito will defend it against Sabre at the next big show.
So I'm kind of at this point, the way that you've been building this up, I'm kind of hoping that Wrestle Kingdom features Tanahashi against Tetsuya Naito in a loser loses their legs match, because the recurring thing
I think the winner is going to lose them too.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's just the way things go, because Naito's, he's in his early 40s now. For a lot of wrestlers that isn't any sort of death sentence whatsoever, but his wrestling style has just put so much pressure on his legs and his body that it's difficult for him to have the same fluidity of movement that he used to have. I mean, Tanahashi is closing in on 50 now. And yeah, he's just wrestled such a hard style where he literally does frog splashes off the top rope every single match that he's in. Eventually that is going to wear your legs out if you're just landing on them over and over and over again. So yeah, as I say, New Japan, as we've discussed for probably 2 years plus at this point, needs to start bleeding in some new, fresher talent onto the main card or into the main event.
Wrestlers need to work on those knees. Knees are a huge thing. Everybody's getting knee injuries, ACL, MCL, this and that, and just the general wear and tear. Be careful with your knees, guys. That's what we're learning here.
Always bend when picking things up.
Yes.
But
I think the hell out of my joke. I was just gonna say, this match doesn't sound like it'll be Great O'Khan, but like,
is it going to be the bee's knees?
it might be. It might be the bee's knees.
So yeah, as I don't think this is going to be a particularly exciting show. I want to go out of your way to see. We'll have to wait and see, because I think I'll certainly be watching the King of Pro Wrestling show when that happens, just to see, in the hope that that's when I see Zack Savage crowned as the world champion. But yeah, we'll just have to see how the card builds up around it. I'm sure a lot of the matches here will spark big matches or title matches for that show as well. I think also part of the reason why they're at least in this particular period of time where there haven't been a lot of title defenses recently is because we're only like a month or two removed from the G1, and obviously no titles are defended during the G1, and that goes on for like a month and a half anyway. So,
all right. Well, if we get any kind of special news coming out of that, we'll talk about that on the hot tags next week, of course.
Here's some fun news. I can breeze through this. MLW has canceled its tapings in Tampa and St. Petersburg due to Hurricane Helene. The news there is that it's literally the one show that I was like, yeah, sure, I'll get tickets. So there goes that. That's just some quick news on MLW not doing a show in Tampa and St. Pete. Of course, the hurricane did barrel through the area, and St. Pete did actually get hammered pretty hard. So hopefully those folks are okay, and I'm sure MLW will be back in 2025 at some point.
I haven't seen much news about that hurricane, but all across the board, hopefully people are staying safe. Seems like it's a pretty crazy hurricane.
Yeah, it came in at like a Cat 4, so the damage it's doing is pretty heavy.
Wasn't like a TNA? They got like their tapings have to be.
Oh yeah, they're in Spartansburg, but they only delayed for an extra day. So, I wonder what that means for them. Maybe they're gonna delay their tapings even more, which would kind of suck because it's the final tapings before Bound for Glory.
Oh, if we're talking about the more niche promotions right now, can I spend a bit of time laughing at NWA?
What happened?
Well, it's what's about to happen. So there's Mike Johnson and some other people kind of clocked the fact that so NWA have a deal with the CW, mm-hmm. where episodes of Power are broadcast on the CW app. Mm-hmm. And then Mike Johnson and some other people clocked the fact that all of the NWA Power shows now have a expiration date on them. That expiration date, funnily enough, is the day before the debut of NXT on the CW.
You know what, though? Let's go from that to some significant news, because in response to that, NXT, all episodes beyond this last year, literally dating back to the Daniel Bryan season, will be leaving Peacock in next week.
So the most interesting part of this NWA thing, beyond the point that they're clearly just getting kicked off the CW and they're going to now not have any sort of however you would class that as a quote unquote TV deal or not. The funny thing about it is that the show that is supposed to take place, or the show that was supposed to be the next one on the catalogue, was the one where they've been building up to for a while, which is the EC3 versus Tom Latimer title match for the NWA World Championship. Because I remember talking to Tony about this, because he said, it says EC3 is still the NWA champion. And I said, because I knew that Tom Latimer had beaten EC3 about a month or so ago. But that has not been broadcast yet.
Nope.
That's why.
That's just been taped. So that's why.
Yeah, it was like early June or early July, wasn't it?
I know, but they've taped loads of things well in advance.
It's so crazy.
But basically, that's why there's a load of websites out there that still suggest that EC3 is the world champion, because technically, chronologically, based on the wrestling shows, EC3 is technically still the champion.
Yeah, he's listed on the website of the National Wrestling Alliance.com roster page.
So essentially, they'll have to find another means of broadcasting that show, whether it's on
Just put it back to YouTube.
on YouTube or Fire or anything along those lines.
I don't know why. And by the way, NWA is exclusively taping in Tampa as well. So at some point, maybe I'll go to an NWA show. But put it back on YouTube. No one wants to jump through hoops to see this. At least if you put it on YouTube, hey, there's a chance that maybe somebody's like, you know what? I'm eating some food right now. I'll leave this on. Let's see what EC3 is doing. And then maybe somebody watches an episode of NWO Power. Like, I understand why, because YouTube isn't the most, financially beneficial, but just get your product in front of people.
I think this is like the biggest marker of everything, that's because the NWA deal with CW was agreed upon and put in place before NXT was announced to be appearing on the CW. So it's probably the biggest confirmation to me that as part of the deal to get NXT onto the CW, that WWE, as they often is their way, have pushed forward for exclusivity in terms of wrestling on the platform. And so, in a lot of people's eyes, and certainly the CW's, losing the NWA to bring NXT on board isn't that much of a sacrifice.
Yeah, if it's any in that regard.
Yeah.
I've spent more time looking at the NWA roster and WoW and a few other things recently than almost anything. I'm gonna record at some point this whole Halloween Havoc thing, which I'll spoil a little bit on here. There are some NWA people on this that I couldn't fucking tell you a damn thing for, but it's 54 matches that I booked, and I was shocked when I saw some of the names that were on here, like Gags the Gimp, and that there's like Magic Jake Dumas and Mecha Wolf and all these, and I was like, I haven't heard of. Are you
kink shaming Gags the Gimp?
Very much so.
Well,
this roster page is really lame though, because it's like Kerry Morton. It's just, it says on here, Cocky doesn't begin to describe former NWA World Junior Heavyweight Champion Kerry Morton. That's it. Okay, am I supposed to care? And like, when it comes to trying to build like a brand for the NWA and whatever, maybe they can work out something with Hulu, because Hulu has ended its partnership with WWE. And on this whole switch up of not being on Peacock and all that, I don't know how this is all going to work, because it seems like everything is just changing right now. Like, we're in the midst of this switch over with the TV stuff, and all of the shows right now for WWE are on USA. And now it's like, well, what's going to happen with Main Event? What's going to happen with NXT Level Up? What's going to happen with the pay-per-views? What's going to happen with the previous shows? How does this apply with that potential third hour of SmackDown? What is going to happen with the pay-per-views for AEW? Because it seems like they're not going to be on Bleacher Report anymore, which that's disappointing for me, because I used to get them for free. So I don't know what I'm going to do when it comes to that. But they don't want to announce yet that that's going to be an HBO Max. So that's another thing that we're waiting for. The Hulu thing, I mean, we know for a fact the only reason that Main Event exists is because Hulu was paying for it. And if they can't get another deal going with either, Peacock or CW or Hulu or whatever it might be to continue to do Main Event is going to disappear. They will not produce that show and then just not air it anywhere. I mean, fundamentally, why would you? But they're not going to prioritize that in any fashion either. They're not going to continue to air that kind of content on a YouTube or, replace Speed on the X type stuff. Hulu, I never really watched it. A lot of other people did check out the reruns and all. So
I still have Hulu. Hulu is great.
I never once subscribed to Hulu. I never saw.
Like, not even like in the beginning?
Nope, not once. Everything that I was interested in that ever aired on Hulu, I just downloaded a torrent. I'll be perfectly honest. It's so
Well,
much
but, like,
easier, and I
okay.
didn't have to deal with the ads.
Okay, but that's your answer to things and your answer to things. Not that I'm saying it's a bad one, because more and more people are getting on board with that. But like I'm talking about when, when the answer wasn't okay, let's just stick to pirating. I thought Hulu had some good stuff. I think it's going to get merged into Disney very quickly. I don't know why it hasn't already,
I'm surprised it
but
hasn't. Yeah.
yeah, Hulu's got some good stuff. The Bear is a great show on Hulu.
I mean, the
What's the Bear?
content, sometimes the shows that they can put on there, like Extraordinary was, I think, a Hulu show. And like, yeah, great show. But I just, I'm not going to be spending the money to sign up for all of these. Hey, we just want an extra little bit of that cut. So can you, what's the thing with Netflix now? It's like they're now taking shows off of the ad tier service to be like, we wanted everybody to sign up for the one with the ads, but now we're going to force everybody to sign up for the ones without it. And all, like, stop bullying me. I'm just going to torrent it, you motherfuckers.
Now that's a situation where I can say, okay, I'm trying to do the right thing, but if you're gonna tie my hands like that, then yeah, just torrent at that point. But
Piracy
no,
is the right thing.
no,
At this point, it is.
I am the dumbass who has all the services that all his friends mooch off of, so I can say that Hulu's not that bad.
Well, what do you anticipate is going to happen with this Hulu main event, WWE, et cetera, type of situation?
Not too sure. Like, I think there's a chance they keep main event going still and put it onto another platform, whether that's Peacock or move over to Netflix once they've got that thing
So
set
Peacock
up.
is 2 episodes behind. I've been looking to see. It's only 2 episodes behind. They upload new ones every Saturday. I think they should just go on Peacock.
I think just as a tool to give some people that wouldn't be on the main show a chance to perform and to do some stuff, and tacked as kind of just recorded dark matches before the shows take place. So I don't anticipate main event going away just yet, but we'll have to just wait and see.
I still say that they could potentially make some money if they were to release this stuff on YouTube and just make it part of the YouTube channel membership. Like, make it $1 a month to subscribe to the YouTube member tier on WWE.com or the YouTube.com/WWE and put that on there. And for $1 a month, I think that WWE would be able to get people for that. And
you would have to put more content than main event.
I mean, they could probably put some other content on there. I don't know where the right balance would be of things that they want to put out on the members only stuff and things that they want to put out there for people that can just spread it on social media. But maybe they can balance out some of the stuff that they have now. Like, maybe I'm an outsider for this, and I mean, guaranteed I'm an outsider for it in some fashion. But I typically don't go to the YouTube channel on YouTube, WWE and really watch anything unless it's YouTube exclusive stuff. Like, I'll check out something like the backstage things that they don't typically air, and I'll check out if they do like the Ultimate Show and they put those episodes up on there. I'll usually check them out on YouTube instead of on Peacock because I just like the YouTube algorithm, interface better. But like, I'm not going to particularly watch the full recap highlights of Monday Night Raw. I know a lot of people will. That episode, let's see how many that has on there. The full recap from this week's Raw has 802,000 views, and it was uploaded 3 days ago. They get clicks on there. Now, maybe you don't want to put that under some kind of a tier, but maybe you put Raw Talk underneath that $1 a month tier or something. I think that they can make enough money on that front that they can justify doing it that way. I wouldn't do the same when it comes to NWA. NWA, I don't think would be able to make enough money to justify that. But
I will say that when I look at a show like Main Event, for me, I would be more likely to watch that show in an era where there wasn't streaming services and there was only, cable and linear television, where, okay, it's Saturday morning and I'm flipping through the channels. I'll watch Main Event and just like it's background noise. But when you have everything, literally ever, at your disposal, I'm not likely to be like, let me go out of my way to watch main event.
If it was people that I thought mattered in the grand scheme, like if they ever did like a number one contenders match or they ever did any kind of a gimmick or something, then I would be inclined to watch main event. But when every single episode for the past like 10 plus years has been Akira Tozawa loses to Brutus Creed or something, then I'm like, all right, I don't need to see it. It's just a match that will not impact anything whatsoever. And yeah, it's for the stands. It's for the people that are like, oh my God, you get to see
Dante Chen's in action.
Yeah, Dante Chen. And
are you not entertained?
When I go through, I guess I've done the main event spoilers every week for all these years. When I try to search for those, inevitably it's so hard to find that because even the people that are in attendance are not tweeting about it. And the ones that are mostly like
so upset. It's so funny to me.
It's because it's so frustrating. It's like, you mean to tell me that there's thousands of people here watching this and none of them on the entire fucking thing will care enough to say what happened, except for it's like there's like one or two people maybe each episode, and they'll put out something that'll be like, so hyped to see Lyra. And you'll be like, okay, so Lyra Valkyria was on it, but I don't know who she fought, and I don't know who won, and I don't know who else was in the other match. And I end up having to do all this goddamn detective work, and I don't fucking like it. So I'm down for it being something to go away.
I love that you're like so bothered by it. It's just so funny because I'm like, it's okay, it's main event, you'll be okay.
It's not okay. I've got too many other things going on. Fuck you, main event. Well, of course, if we find out any more information about that, we'll talk about that in the future too. But I am anticipating that every single time that this Hulu partnership with WWE has ended, they always end up re-signing another thing. So wouldn't shock me at all if by tomorrow morning it ends up being WWE signed a new deal with Hulu and main event's going to continue and blah, 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 and whatever. So maybe now that I'm saying that, it won't, just to prove me wrong. And maybe the fact that I'm saying that it won't now means that it will. We're going to quadruple blind this. I don't know.
You've got all your bases covered.
I'm going to pull Dave Meltzer here. They may or may not say something of one fashion or another. There you go. Speaking of signing new contracts and switching things over a little bit to AEW talk, Saraya has re-signed with AEW, and Dustin Rhodes is expected to re-sign, although he, according to the reports that I can find, haven't found out anything that he said that he has fully officially re-signed. And there are more discussions about the Daniel Garcia situation that AEW is effectively considering that he's probably going to leave. And then there's the Rey Fenix thing of getting, a year tacked on for his injuries?
Yeah, that's what I was reading from Twitter accounts like Wrestle Purists from The Observer, because that's the fastest way to get some news. But it does appear that they've tacked on some injury time, and it's pretty crazy. I know Sean tweeted out that, it's going to be a while before you see the Lucha Brothers in WWE. To be clear, I think Penta is kind of just free to do as he pleases. But it looks like we're going to wait a while to see Rey Fenix.
And if I'm WWE, I'm waiting until I can sign them both. And just have them come in together rather than bring in Penta and then bring in Phoenix. Although there's positives to, both scenarios.
I think there's a huge upside to Penta. He's great. Even before he was doing a lot of the Lucha Brothers stuff, he was like Impact World Champion and doing great in Lucha Underground as Penta Oscuro. And I think you could sign Penta.
Penta is in my Halloween Havoc card for anybody who wants to get a little bit of a preview for that.
Is there any fear?
He is not even written down as Penta El Zero Miedo. That's how much I don't like that. I'm like, no, I'm writing him down as Pentagon. I should probably put him as Penta Oscuro, but I'm not changing that fucking graphic anymore. I've made 70 something graphics. I'm not doing them again. Saraya re-signing, not surprising to me. More so surprising that they would bother to re-sign her, but then again, I don't put anything past a company wanting to re-sign somebody. If they like them to begin with, then why not keep them? But that's not too shocking. Dustin Rhodes, actually, at this point, it's not too shocking for me that he's re-signing either, even though a lot of people were writing it off that he was just going to go to WWE as soon as he could because of the Cody Rhodes thing. He's not in a position where that would really matter all that much right now. And I don't know if this is exactly what he would be thinking, but I would assume this is what he would be thinking. Do you want to go to WWE and be told you can only be the guy that gets beaten up to make Cody look stronger after he's already won the championship and the momentum is not as strong as it was heading into WrestleMania? Or do you want to stick around in AEW where you are holding 2 championships and still wrestling and potentially can still work in this like leadership trainer kind of capacity as if he would be in WWE? I see exactly why Dustin Rhodes would just decide to stay.
I think he should stay. I think he can do more for the business in AEW than he can in WWE. And that should always be the main goal at this stage in someone's career, you know? I think he's really enjoying his in-ring stuff. He's got the Rhodes Wrestling Academy. He's starting his own promotion, the Rhodes Wrestling Association, which can be used as like a feeder system. This is me speculating on that last part. But, you know, I think, like I said, he can do more good for the industry in AEW than he can in WWE.
Yeah, I think with the Dustin Rhodes situation, that's just people wanting him to just go to WWE just so he can be with Cody. And like they're 2 separate people. They're both on different trajectories right now. Cody doesn't need Dustin around time to just be like, you know, as Tony says, like the guy that's just going to be a pseudo manager or occasional tag team partner, and guy will just get beaten by people in the bloodline. Like right now in AEW, he's in a storyline where he's helping rehabilitate Sammy Guevara's image. Obviously, that's not the story, but like that's what that's what he's doing. That's what he's actually doing. Yeah. And yeah, like he's doing stuff with like the Von Erichs as well, and helping. So there's like he's lending his experience and just the fact that he's just universally beloved at this point in his career to help to push some younger guys up to that level as well. So yeah, that's where he can offers the most value, and also just he'll do more. I think he'd do more fun stuff still in AEW than if he were to go back to WWE. The Saraya one is disappointing, just simply because I just don't think that she offers anything of value from an in-ring perspective, or even from like a character perspective to AEW television anymore. I think that she realistically, in terms of just her image online, in terms of just her reputation and her relationship in particular, and the whole like can of worms that opens up, I think that she's more of a net negative to the overall perception of AEW than if she was to stick around. So in which case I would have probably just ended it amicably. The fact that she is re-signing tells me one of 2 things. One, either Tony Khan really wants to keep her around and has, you know, done something, has put the contract together for it. Or the other thing is that there's zero interest coming from WWE in her services, and so if she wants to stay in wrestling, then AEW is the next best thing. The thing that I found most interesting is apparently the deal is like a new 1-year contract. It's not the 1-year extension that would have been added on to her current deal.
So that might be a lower amount.
Yeah, that's the thing that, like, again, it's just speculation on my part, but that's the thing that leans me maybe more towards the fact that she's re-signed for a lower amount, so they've managed to knock her down because there's no competition for her signature.
Mm-hmm.
Which I think you know would be, it's not unexpected. I don't think that WWE needs her to add to the women's division there. And the other competition would be like if TNA wanted her, but would Saraya want to go down to TNA's level? So essentially, they've probably just reached a mutual agreement where like it works for all parties. But just from a fan's perspective that watches AEW more than any other promotion, I'd rather that she wasn't around anymore. the Phoenix and Pentagon stuff, like the adding the year on, it just really strikes me as like the sort of stuff that we would attack WWE for. So we shouldn't treat AEW any differently when they do this stuff. Like fundamentally,
Go ahead.
Fundamentally, they want to leave. They have no intention of re-signing with AEW. If you end up using Phoenix on TV next year, then it's just going to shine more of a spotlight on that story, especially if Pentagon in that time does sign with WWE and goes over there. It's just going to make you look bad. And at the end of the day, right now, and I've brought this up like multiple times, but it bears repeating. They're losing the perception towards WWE by a massive margin right now.
Mm-hmm.
And doing things like this is not going to help redeem it. It's just going to make you look more and more bad guy, which is the one thing that AEW has always had going for it, for the most part, up until like most recent times, is that they were the good guys in this arrangement. They were like, the people that were leading like a new approach to wrestling that wasn't the sports entertainment glossy approach to things. They were offering a fresh perspective, or at least highlighting wrestlers that you wouldn't have seen pushed in WWE under Vince McMahon's tenure. And so that was the thing that they always had that like groundswell of goodwill behind them at all times. And more that you do stuff like this, like re-signing a very controversial figure like Saraya, or like holding Phoenix to his contract against his will, pretty much. And especially if it even go to like the petty lengths of just holding him for the next like X number of months for these injury stuff, and then just continue to park him on the bench in the same way they've seemingly done with Ricky Starks. It just doesn't make you look good. And also, like we had the news story last week that Miro's requested his release, and nothing has come up off the back of that so far.
Mm-hmm.
So he just seems to be, I think, and again, this is just me speculating, reading too much into it, don't know the guy, but I feel like certain things that have happened in the last few years with his relationship with WWE have made him very petty about stuff. And I think he's now not, well, there's at least a big part of him now that's not thinking so much about what's best for just AEW or the company in general, or the roster or anything along those lines, or the people that want to leave and go somewhere else. It's more about, well, I don't want to give them my toys because they're dicks.
Yeah, it's like we use the analogy, and it's fair in some ways and it's unfair in some ways, about the shiny new toy thing with Tony Khan, because it does seem to be that kind of psychological mentality, but then you can apply that in other ways too, like the way that kids, and again, I always take this and be like, oh, Tony's calling Tony Khan a child or something like that. No, it's just that this kind of mentality does apply to adults as well. The thing that happens when kids don't want to play with a toy until somebody else wants it, and suddenly it's like, well, I don't want to share, and you played with that toy before, so now I'm going to play with it longer because I don't want you to play with it anymore. Or you did something to me, so I need to do it back to you, eye for an eye. Or, we've gotten a lot of things that aren't what AEW originally promised to be. And I'd love to see more accountability when it comes to the like press conferences and stuff. I'd love, and that's across the board, WWE should be called out on things, AEW should be called out on things. When's the last time that somebody ever brought up to Tony Khan the idea that originally he was talking about making people employees instead of independent contractors?
I think the press conferences should just go away.
If they're going to keep having them, though, we should get people that should say these things. Like, I'll always say, I do not consider myself a journalist. I consider myself a pundit. But the people that do consider themselves journalists do journalism.
That's just the issue. But especially with wrestling in particular, the problem is that the journalists are fans,
right?
And so, as fans, they don't want to attack people.
Mm-hmm.
And also, it's more aligned to, because wrestling is so.
So
there's such a divide. Yeah, there's such an issue between all of the like, you're either pro WWE or you're an anti AEW, or you're pro AEW and anti WWE, and you can't really find, and there's only like a handful of people like in the middle ground or whatever. So you can't really be seen to like push too hard one way or the other, or you're going to be targeted for it. But also, I would, prefer them to ask like harder questions to people. But Tony Khan has become such a very contained and very deliberate with his answers now. He used to be quite an open book when it came to this stuff, but now he just kind of
learned
just
the
gives
word
a lot.
No comment.
Yeah, gives a lot of non-answers now, and like there's no point even trying to do that with like Triple H at one of the WWE press conferences and stuff like that, because you're never going to get anything out of him. In fact, Triple H's one's more appealing because he clearly isn't as like media trained as some other people are.
But the reason I said I would like them to go away, to be clear, it's another one of those things. It isn't because of the whole coverage of it. It's such a weird animal. It's, well, I'm going to go here and I'm going to ask a serious question. And then you get the weird, like, oh man, come on, you're bringing down the vibe of the room. And not just from WWE, but like from the fellow other people in the room. And you're like, okay,
Stooges.
Where the fuck do you go? Like, what is the line, And I think that's why these things kind of suck, because you'll get one or two people who want to say something cool. You'll get like one person who will just be like, "Hi Tony, how do you feel about the fact that there are 3 women's matches on the card?" And then that takes up 30 minutes of a press conference.
Hey,
and
this is Dan Smith from Chicago Times. When are you coming back to Chicago?
Yeah,
so I can tell Chicago about Chicago? Like, fuck you, dude. Who cares?
I get it. Everybody, like, to Callum's point, everybody is kind of coming into these things from a different area. Some people are content creators. Some people are Dan Smith from the Chicago Times. Some people are just like...
I hope that there's no Dan Smith. Let's see. Dan Smith, Chicago.
One of the best people, I think, in the whole entire game, Brandon Thurston, WrestleNomics. He is the most on point, like, journalist of the bunch. If it was a room full of people like him, yeah, I'd say keep doing them. But it's too confusing. And not just from the people in the room standpoint, it's from the wrestler standpoint as well. 1 minute, you're getting like Jericho, who wants to just say everything about the match he was just in. The next minute, you're getting Tony Storm, who's going to be like, and fuck Wendy Richter, and by the way, no questions. So then people are jarred because it's like, I don't know where I am right now.
Yeah.
What's the vibe that how am I supposed to be behaving? So I think as cool as these things can be, and they started out being, it's too pick and choosy, because sometimes if you want to do a proper journalism, it's like, well, you're just a dirt sheet. Who do you think you are trying to ask these questions? You want to have some fun? Oh, why aren't you being a real journalist and holding people accountable? It's like, you're damned if you do, damned if you don't.
Essentially, if you are going to do these press conferences, journalists shouldn't be there as part of the show. And that's how both, in different ways, kind of frame this, because whether it's part of the AEW ones where a lot of the interviews are done in character, or whether it's also in WWE ones where they very much curate who asks questions and curate who is in these press conferences and align it quite heavily towards the content creation side of things, where you're going to get these more softball questions. It is just down to the fact that these press conferences are just extensions of the pay-per-view you just watched, rather than, an actual exploration into asking some really tough questions about, people signing or re-signing, or why you did this particular move, or like the ticket business, or anything along those lines. It's all just gets swathed in a big, like, we're just here to have fun and create some stuff to put onto our YouTube channels.
I would love somebody, though, to, like, next time that Tony Khan's doing one of these, to just be like, hey Tony, like, we're excited for Wrestle Dream, or I'm assuming this is going to be the next press conference. Quick question about Rey Fenix. What do you say about the people that online that would say every time that somebody was being held back from WWE, that their contracts, that was something that was kind of petty and all? What would you say to somebody that would say the same thing about you, what you're doing to Rey Fenix? I would love somebody to have the balls to say that. and they won't.
And then also, if they did ask it, Tony Khan just wants to say, "Hey, Rey Fenix is one of the best wrestlers we have in our promotion. I'm super happy to have him as part of the team.
He's a great part of the roster, and we're looking forward to seeing what he does next."
Part of building AEW, and he's been great. And right now, he's still under contract with us, and that's all I feel comfortable saying.
Yep. So even better. Somebody has the balls to say, and please elaborate on it more than just saying that he's a great wrestler and that he's on the thing or something. Or like if you could, and a follow up. Can you say something that isn't just bullshit? Because it's like, just be fucking on it. I have zero patience anymore about corporate speak and lack of transparency. I don't know if I'm just so cynical from the way that the world is, or if I'm just getting older and becoming one of those like old coots where people are like, I'm just gonna say shit, and if you're mad, it's fuck you. Like, I just want people to be like, hey, listen, I got a question to, I don't know, if it's a politics thing or something on top of that, just be like, I got a question. You're a dick. And it's like, well, that's not a question. And you're like, oh, that's right. Yeah, it isn't a question. You are a dick. Just like
So to sum up where all this started, Dustin Rhodes re-signing, thumbs
up.
Oh yeah. Saraya re-signing, thumbs down. Phoenix being held against his will, fuck you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'll say I don't know if I commented on Saraya, and I think that she's better off just being there. I think it does nobody no harm. She's barely been heavily featured, and if they want to keep her on board and have her do her book tour with AEW, that's fine.
As a wrestler, I think she's past her prime. As a manager, I don't think she's really ever been all that great. As a backstage person, I don't know. Maybe she's got a lot of friends there. As a person on Twitter and all that, that's a risk. But if they're willing to pay for the risk, then yeah, maybe they get some rewards out of it. I don't know. Real quick mention for this thing. It's not really too much to get into, but Shane McMahon and the Young Bucks met up at an airport. It's kind of one of those like supposedly chance things that they were on the same flight. So now everybody just goes, oh my God, okay, that means that they're going to, whatever. I'm not anticipating anything crazy happening like that, but it is kind of interesting to see that that's a second meetup with Shane and an AEW talent.
Shane exclusively spends time at airports. He can only be photographed at airports. He doesn't actually have a home.
That's the more expensive version of being told that you have to sleep on the couch. You gotta go sleep at the airport.
No, I think
if it's anyone that's that rich that doesn't have a home, I'm 100% certain that's Shane McMahon. Considering even when he's home, he doesn't feel like he's home.
Well, if we're talking about McMahon's, we got to talk about this Mr. McMahon documentary. Now, I am only an episode and a half in. This documentary so far, from what I've been told from other people that have watched it a little bit more, we were talking about this before we got started. We were just like, setting up the recording and all. It seems like the consensus for this, and this was what I was feeling from that episode and a half that I've been watching. This is not as biting of a documentary as I was hoping that it would be. And for somebody that knows a good portion of what they've already covered and seemingly what they will cover with the episodes I haven't seen yet, I think it could be a lot better. But what I'm finding to be the most fun part of this, I'm watching it with Caroline. And not only does, that upgrade everything anyway, she's my wife, but seeing her reaction to certain things is really fun because she knows some of these stories I've told her over time, where she'll be like, oh, is this the steroid scandal that you mentioned and that kind of thing. But one of the things I wanted to mention, and this is, I was like, we'll come back to this a little bit later on. She had not seen No Holds Barred. So when they showed the clip of that, and it's the dookie part, I tried to record her face. I wasn't able to get it. But the look of utter disdain and confusion on her face was fantastic. And that is like the highlight of watching this, because when they mention certain things once in a while, the look of like, what the fuck that she gets, it makes it infinitely more entertaining than if I was just watching this on my own. I think if I were to just watch this by myself, if the second episode doesn't finish better and if the third episode wouldn't be any better, I probably would just skip the rest of it because they're not doing anything that is like breaking ground for me.
Yeah, I think I'll just comment on the first episode and a half, since that's what you've seen. I think those were probably the better ones. Like, I really enjoyed even just the minutes that we got of him talking about his father. And I like the quote where he claims that his father was like, towards the end of his life, yeah, you know what, Vinny, I'm proud of you, and those other guys, they weren't really my friends. Fuck them. Is Vince lying? Who knows? But it was exciting to see that. It was exciting to see, you know, the footage of his first like announcing where he's like, "Is this okay, Pop?" You know, that's the kind of stuff that I geek out for. And on a serious note, I think this documentary as a whole is a good look into what shitty childhoods can do to people, and I think Vince McMahon is still, in many ways, a man who was scarred by the fact that he faced abuse in his mother's home and his father wasn't very affectionate.
And I mean, you could tell that for not even just that, but even just the nature and nurture thing. This. Like, well, the nature and nurture element of it, not even just the abuse, but like it starts off, hey, you know, I grew up in a trailer park in North Carolina. No wonder Vince McMahon has so much disdain for like the South and being like, oh, I'm living in this Connecticut mansion and I'm gonna speak the King's English and all this. Like, there is very much like a pre-met his dad and post-met his dad Vince McMahon. And the damage that stuff can lead into, I mean, look at what he's done. You know?
So yeah, I mean, I can't really comment too much because I haven't watched any of it yet, and based on like people's reviews that I've heard so far of it, just to prep me up to see whether it would be worth checking out, it doesn't fill me with a lot of confidence. It seems like the issue is for us as like actual wrestling fans that look into a lot of this stuff and have done a lot of our own like either research or watched other stuff talking about these things in the past, is that there's not as much information for us to kind of glean or new things that come out of it. It's mainly just a lot of additional commentary about things that we're already pretty well aware of. And also because it is made for that more general audience, like you say, you're sitting there with Caroline, and that adds a bit more to it because Caroline doesn't know the wrestling business like we do, or they don't know they don't explore into the new side of things. So I'm like, if I was to watch it with someone who had no idea about WWE or had no idea about Vince and watched it, they would probably, like, in certain elements, have their minds blown about all the different scandals and all the stuff that's exposed. And the footage and just all that stuff generally. Like,
why is Trish Stratus barking like a dog? And, you know.
Yeah, exactly. But it's just a case of, I don't think that it's not a documentary made for us.
Right.
Which is totally fine. As I say, it needs to appeal to a wider audience, to people that aren't as familiar. But you then start, again, I can only go by what other people have mentioned on reviews and other things that I've seen about it, that the more that you go into it up until the final episode, where you do get a bit more into the Janelle Grant stuff and his like departure from WWE, you start to just it starts to devolve into, okay, with all like this scandal stuff, now let's talk about just what WWE is and what happened and the Vince McMahon character, as opposed to the man behind these scandals. They almost tried to cram a lot of the scandal stuff into the first couple of episodes, or the second episode in particular, where you do talk about like Rhea Chatterton and the Ring Boys scandal and Jimmy Snuka and all that stuff.
They talked about Wendy Richter. I think that was episode 3 where he gets into like the whole that screw job version of like the whole thing.
But that's like a precursor then, because episode 3, again, I haven't watched it, but from what I've heard, it also goes into the Montreal screw job. Because the whole episode's called Screw Job, isn't it?
All of that. Yeah, they do.
And it's a case of like as a wrestling fan, I'm just going, oh, fucking hell, I don't need to hear anyone ever again talk about the Montreal Screwjob, because how many more talking do you need talking about that incident? It's the most talked about thing in wrestling history, is the Montreal Screwjob.
Yeah, I will say,
And
as
then,
somebody who grew up wanting more information on that, I have heard every angle at least 5 times over.
Yeah.
You don't need it.
Yeah.
There's never any new twist to it. It's never like, and then now we interviewed this other person that's going to reveal that Vince was dancing around backstage going, can't wait to fuck him over, or something like, you know what I mean?
But it's also like the way that you have other things, like, again, from what I've heard about how you then talk about just the Austin rivalry and the Monday Night Wars and ruthless aggression and all of that stuff. And it's like, you know, as a wrestling fan, I'm here to watch this documentary to go into all the dirty laundry about Vince McMahon, good or bad. I'm not definitely just saying that this needs to be like a assassination piece. I'd be very happy if it was an assassination piece on Vince McMahon, but it doesn't have to be that. It can be a bit more of a balanced, nuanced take on things. But it should be all about him and his scandal. Whereas just because, and this is just always the way that it goes with wrestling documentaries, whether it's a WWE produced one or anything else, it always feels like they need to explain how wrestling works to everyone at all points in time, or just go into the actual TV side of things, because wrestling, just by its very nature, is a bit of a freak show.
And that's something that I'm kind of sick of as well, because as Callum says, it's not made for us. It's made for the casual fan, or maybe even somebody who's never seen any wrestling.
Right.
But I'm so sick of, and wrestling had a thing called territories. And it's like, God, if you're gonna do this, spend 5 episodes detailing the territories and really get into the minutia of it. Because I want some new information. Like, I ran this article on Fightful.com because it was interesting to me. As lame as the quote was, Vince says, yeah, we put the machine behind Lex Luger. God, he came nowhere near Hulk Hogan. And like, that was like, okay, cool. I don't know if I've ever heard Vince talk about the Lex Express, even in that muted of a way, where I just want new information. Like, there's a quote where he says, yeah, we went through some rough years there because Bret Hart didn't have any charisma. It's like, all right, that gives me something I haven't heard before, other than, oh man, well, WCW really was the cool thing to watch, and then we came up with Attitude. It's like, first of all, nobody who was watching WCW at the time was like, oh, this is the cutting edge product that is like, WWE isn't beating them. It was just the NWO. That's it. WCW gets like a good year and a half, and it's just the NWO.
Right. There was, if you go back to 1995 WCW, nobody fucking cares.
Right, because that's what I mean. Like, they talk about Luger leaving, and they're like, oh man, they were showing that WCW is the cool place to be because Hogan was there and Savage was there. And I'm like, no. Have you watched any of that programming? Like, Hogan was getting booed. It's more the WWE narrative. And I just want more, like, something outside of that isn't just random talking head who wrote a book on wrestling who's going to talk about kayfabe. It's like, okay, fine.
The most interesting quote I heard coming out of it, from other people's reviews and reports on it, is that at one point, I believe it might be in the second episode, Vince brings up the fact about where they talk about WrestleMania, and they talk about like the gamble it was, and just essentially just Vince's approach to the way that he bought out the territories and stuff along those lines. And I think he uses the phrase, and I'm just paraphrasing here, but essentially the phrase, I don't know if what I did was good for the wrestling business, but it was good for what I needed. It was good for our company.
He gives Vince, I'll say this, Vince's, the one-liners he gives are actually pretty good. He says something like, when they're talking about the WCW stuff, he's like, look, I knew they were well within their right to do that. Sometimes what I say isn't really what I think, and he kind of, he's just putting himself whole there, but like, he's at least giving you a little bit of like, look, I know I'm full of shit, which I'd rather than anything else.
Well, I think that quote about the rest of it is so interesting because so many people, like the narrative that's always been strung about it is how Vince McMahon kind of took, and even like guys like Hulk Hogan in the documentary just regurgitate this thing about how he took wrestling out of the bingo halls and out of like the darkness and into like this new flashy era. And it's more just a case of, like, it's just the narrative that feeds around it because even the guy himself says, "Oh, I just wanted to, be super rich and have the best promotion out there." And it wasn't bringing the business out of the light. It was all about just making me ludicrously rich. And that's a totally valid thing to do. I'm not saying that it's scummy business and practices, that type of thing, but at the end of the day you're in a capitalist society and you're totally within your right to do that. But as I say, people have always tried to build up this kind of like picture of like, oh, what Vince did revolutionized the wrestling industry. No, it just made WWE the best. It made them the biggest. It didn't revolutionize the wrestling industry. If making WWE the best killed every other promotion out there, I'm sure Vince wouldn't have batted an eyelid.
No, it's romanticized in a different way for sure. And there are positives and negatives that I've seen so far, and I'm curious to continue to watch it. I'll probably continue to watch the whole rest of the thing, but
what I will say, there are some fun Netflix edits. Like Meltzer's interviewed for this, right? And he's just telling the truth. And he's like, yeah, they said the whole thing that Andre had never been beaten, and Andre was beaten. And they show footage of Andre getting beaten before WrestleMania 3. They showed that Andre was never slammed, and Andre was slammed like 25 times. They show Hogan slamming Andre. And they're like, he goes, oh, the attendance number. They've said that lie so many times, I'm pretty sure they believe it. And they cut to Bruce and Hogan and Vince saying 93,000. I thought that was so funny. There's an even funnier version in episode 4 where Vince is talking about the Attitude Era. And he's like, oh, it really wasn't that bad. We were just following the way television was going, which is true. And then he goes, nobody died. They show a buried alive match. Nobody got raped. They play the clip of Vince saying to Triple H, come on out, you rapist. No, nobody. There was no gun. Show Pillman. It's just so fucking funny. And like, good. Yeah, there was.
I don't know if you've seen it in any of the episodes you've watched so far, but I heard that is there something to do with like Tony Atlas?
At least on the first episode, I saw this. The two things that made me stop because I was working on the graphics for the Halloween Havoc thing while having this on. Two things that made me turn around and look at the screen. One being completely out of context. I don't remember what they were talking about. They were talking about something that wasn't this topic, but like if they were saying like, I don't know, like the territories, like we really screwed over people with your contracts or something. And then it cuts to Tony Atlas and he's like, yeah, we used to abuse women all the time. They were like toys to us. Or something, and it's like, wait, what? Did I just miss something there? And then the other 5 seconds
later, he goes, I didn't like Pat Patterson. He grabbed my pecker. Which, okay, but, I do. Go ahead, go.
I was gonna say, like, for what I heard of it, essentially, like, he does that line, and it's just like he grabs his pecker, and then the guy who's interviewing, like, tries to get him to clarify what he meant by that. And so, when you tell someone about it, and he just bursts out laughing, because of course you burst out laughing. It's like it just shows how disconnected some of these people are to the wrestling business, which is fair enough. I wouldn't want people to be super invested because I know what that's like, and it fucking sucks in certain aspects. But it's a case of like in any other like line of work would like look at that and just go, well, yeah, surely just tell your manager or something like that.
That's
an
HR problem.
Yeah, tell me.
Yeah, and it's like, well, who the fuck am I supposed to tell? Like, tell Vince I'm going to get fired. This guy's the booker. He's got power over me.
Did you see what he just did with Rita? Like,
yeah,
he does touch on that, and he claims that was consensual.
Right. Well, he says that in a way too. That's also like. Well, just one of those things where you have to roll your eyes because he's like, that was a consensual relationship or something. And you go, okay, well, maybe there's two sides to every story. Maybe, look, we've had plenty of instances where people are like, this was totally consensual, but the person's claiming that it wasn't because they want to get back to me for something or whatever. But he immediately follows it up with, and even if it wasn't, the statute of limitations means it couldn't be. And you're like, okay, motherfucker, then it wasn't. Like,
yeah, and even if it was a rape, the statute of limitations. What?
Like,
did you just say that out loud? Like, do you want to take? Like, no wonder you tried to buy back the fucking documentary. You fucking, like, what?
It's just like that. The moments like that make you go, okay, thank you for the footage of that, because that proves who the person is.
Yeah, like
because nobody who's guilty of a crime or nobody who's innocent of a crime goes, and you couldn't punish me anyway, whatever. It's like that O.J. Simpson, if I would have done it, here's what I would have done book. Like, immediately you just go, I mean, maybe, never mind.
You know,
like you said, like, it's not for us as people that are more, I'll never consider myself a historian. I know way more than an average person was, but like, you guys beat the hell out of me when it comes to any kind of like trivia type stuff. And, like the same when it comes to some other stuff too. Like, you ask me about Terminator 2 and you say like, give me some trivia. I could be like, oh, okay, well, the noise that's made for shotgun from the Terminator's hallway scene in T2 is actually a composite of a rifle in a canyon and like all that. And it's like, wow, you fucking nerd. Oh, good. Shout out to David Zaritsky, by the way, for actually, I'm going to test you guys on this. I didn't fucking know this answer. I clicked on David Zaritsky's Bond Experience YouTube channel. His he had a little bit of like a Bond trivia night, I guess, at some point. And the very first question I just skipped through. I was like, oh man, I don't fucking know this one. How long did it take Red Grant to kill the fake James Bond during the beginning of From Russia with Love? What's your random guess?
88 seconds.
I'll go close to like 40 seconds.
A minute and 52 seconds.
Okay.
And
oh fuck, I was.
You're pretty close, yeah. And I was sitting there, I was like, I don't fucking know. And the two people that were doing that just buzz immediately, a minute and 52 seconds, and it's just like, there you go, it's right or whatever. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, you can ask me a lot of Bond trivia, but not that much. There's always levels to these sort of things, and the documentary it's good to show somebody that isn't as tapped in, and it can give them that kind of perspective. But then again, of course, any documentary, it kind of warps your perspective towards a certain way, and there are pros and cons to that too. Not calling attention to certain things and not giving things the proper credit. So I'm sure that the rest of the episodes are the same, but I'm interested enough to continue to watch it.
Well, what I will say, in episode 6, they get into like later stage stuff, not just the Janelle Grant stuff. But one of the quotes that I think is fucking wild is Vince saying, well, talking about WrestleMania 30 with The Undertaker. Well, looking back on it, I don't see where Mark could have gotten concussed. I don't think he was concussed. I think it was just the trauma of losing. Which is wild, because you know where he got concussed. It's the part where Brock drops him on his head.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you can point to it and go, there, right there, that. And there's just stuff like that where it's like, he just doesn't believe in CTE. We found out through this documentary that Stone Cold Steve Austin doesn't believe in CTE. Not one of his better quotes from this documentary. There's a lot of just out there stuff like that. He admits to the storyline where he wanted to man Stephanie.
Oh, he does?
Yeah.
What does he say there?
He just goes, yeah, there were some things that were pitched. Yes, that was one of them. No, it didn't make it. Okay. Okay.
Some things that were pitched as if it wasn't.
I mean,
and I'm trying to figure out multiple different ways to do it. Own up to it, you fucking perv.
So I will say this, and I want to go back to the Tony Atlas, Pat Patterson thing, because I saw a bit of a discussion about that on Reddit, and I've kind of come to the conclusion that, like, much like with Vince, a lot more people are going to be more comfortable just saying, yeah, Pat Patterson was an abuser. Whereas in past, and even in this documentary, they go, the other two were, Pat was just a target because he was gay. And while there may be some truth to that, if both Tony Atlas and Roddy Piper have stories of, like, him doing inappropriate things, that will now just be looked at as, like, no, you were an abuser.
Mm-hmm.
No, I don't care if you were, the Yoda of wrestling, as Chris Jericho says. And I think you just need to get more comfortable with, no, that is just it. Like, I saw people saying, damn The Rock for making Pat try to be a sympathetic, likable guy in Young Rock. Like, I think you're going to see more of, it doesn't matter what the climate of the time was or whatever, you're just an abuser, full stop.
Oh, it's like once a criminal, always a criminal. Once a cheater, always a cheater. Like, there's a certain level of, if you do something, then that defines you. If you murder somebody at some point in your life, you can't be like, I'm not a murderer, I only kill 3 people. Like, you know what I mean? And if any of the stories, if one story about Pat Patterson abusing somebody is true, he's an abuser. Definitive. Like, it is what it is. And if none of them are true, then it's an unfortunate situation of him being targeted just because he's got a different lifestyle. And it can't be both.
But, and to Callum's earlier point, I think the reason that instances like him grabbing Tony Atlas or him, grabbing Piper or whatever, I think the reason that those aren't looked at as cases of abuse is because it's just seen as a weird byproduct of, but that was just the locker room. That was just what it was. And you're only looking at that through today's eyes, which is, yes, true, but also it is what it is. Like, it's weirdo behavior to do that.
It doesn't absolve. It should never absolve people of things like that just because it was of the time or just that's the way things were. It just means the way things were was sick and twisted. Right.
It's just that, like, people were kind of hypnotized by all this. And they just believed, that is the way things need to be.
And there is something to be said about certain, like, okay, that joke wasn't considered crass back then, or like different times do create different situations, and you can look on some stuff in the past and go, hey, look, we wouldn't do that now. But back then, it wasn't considered a problem. And yeah, in retrospect, I wish we would have done it just because now our perspectives have changed for certain like storylines or whatever. But the same can't be said about everything. And when you get into those kind of like hyper serious real life type situations like that, then reframing it as just as different time, it's not a catch-all that can just excuse things. So certain people are going to come out of this looking much worse than they expected to. But I'm not seeing a big backlash or really a whole lot of chatter about this documentary to begin with. Like, I expected there would be a lot more discussion, and maybe it's just because it only came out on Wednesday and not as many people have watched it. Maybe throughout the weekend, we're going to see a little bit more. But for the people that have been able to binge it and all, I'm still just like, I'm surprised at all these episodes, and there's not more quotes coming out of this. There's not more stories.
See, no. This is the fault of the age of content and everything moving at light speed, because Fightful alone has run like 40 articles from this thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not even exaggerating. It's just that things move so fast that if you didn't catch all of it on Wednesday, we moved on. And that's kind of part of the problem.
I would love for, whether it's Fightful, whether it's eWrestling News, whatever, anybody out there that wants to do it, I'd love for somebody to just be like, here are the interesting quotes in one article, instead of clicking on 900 that fill it with a bunch of, Mr. McMahon was a popular character and blah, blah, blah. Okay, just give me the fucking quote. Just give me a bullet point list of all the quotes that are, but I'll probably keep watching the show. And, if anything crazy happens like that, maybe we'll roll that into next week's discussion, but probably not. The cycle will probably move on. We'll talk about other things. Like, for instance, if we're talking about movie type stuff, whatever, MJF was cast in Happy Gilmore 2. I have no other information about it. But hey, I'll check it out.
But you were going to check out Happy Gilmore 2 anyway, weren't you?
I mean, I pretty much was. Happy Gilmore was never my favorite of the Adam Sandler movies. I always liked Billy Madison more. But Happy Gilmore's got its moments. And if they're doing a sequel to that, of course I'm going to check it out. It's a movie from my childhood. If they did a Billy Madison 2, I would check that out. If they did a fucking Biodome 2, I'd watch it. I don't know how they would do a Biodome 2 now with Pauly Shore not really doing anything, but any of those movies that I used to watch as a kid from that era. Look, I just recently saw Beetlejuice. I actually liked it quite a bit.
That movie was good.
Solid movie. it's not going to hit the same way that Beetlejuice did as a kid, but I wouldn't expect it to.
AEW Insider reports that MJF will be playing the role of one of Gilmore's sons.
One of his sons? Okay.
Adam Sandler being MJF's dad, I can get behind that.
I wonder if it's going to be like that. He's got multiple sons and they're all into like different sports or something. Since it's like, you know, Happy Gilmore wants to be into hockey and it's getting into golf. Maybe it'll be like, here's this son of mine and he's into, I don't know.
It's got to be wrestling. He needs to just be into wrestling and then it's funnier that way.
Yeah. Well, we know that he's a fan of wrestling too, Adam Sandler. So I'm down to see that. And we'll talk about that when the movie comes out. I guess at this point we're transitioning over into TV talk, actually. So Monday Night Raw had some pretty interesting things that happened on there. And we're not, of course, going to break down every little thing that happened because you can go check out that coverage out there and all. But we got some updates for the Bad Blood card. Which, by the way, if you want to check back the In Your House Bad Blood watch along that we did, Fan Announce Table earlier this week, go ahead and check that out. But Dominic Mysterio is going to be in a shark cage during the Liv Morgan and Rhea Ripley match. Now, they had her being Rhea, say, you're going to be hanging from a shark cage. And then everything that I've seen since then hadn't specified hanging from a shark cage. It's just locked in a shark cage. So I'm going to...
They always hang the cage.
Not always. They do have, they have had people in the past in the shark cage thing ringside, like the whole War Games thing, or like, I forget, was it the Paul Bearer thing where he was ringside for the concrete?
Yeah, but that's because they were going to.
Yeah, they were going to do the concrete thing. So it's like, I would assume that since she said hanging and that most of the time the shark cage is hanging, that it will be hanging. But that's kind of interesting if they do both a hanging from the shark cage thing and the Hell in a Cell thing. So that means that they're not going to have that set up in the traditional way of just having the Hell in a Cell cage already set up. So they're going to have to set that up later in there. And hey, we're getting the Dom in a shark cage thing we talked about that we thought was going to happen earlier. Still not custody for Dominic.
I mean... I like it. It kind of plays into the whole he was behind bars. It's funny. It's a funny gimmick. I'm not going to say it's Triple H booking Triple H because he doesn't have a tendency to do that, even though this does come close to a match that he had early in his career. But I like the idea.
I mean, I'm not a huge fan of the shark cage kind of stipulation because you know how it's going to go, like he's going to find a way to get out of the cage or drop something. If it was like suspended over the ring, then he's going to drop something for Liv Morgan, and either it'll work or it'll backfire. That's kind of it, really.
Mm-hmm. I'm assuming he drops like brass knuckles or something, and Liv doesn't grab it, and Rhea gets it and wins the title or something.
Yeah. I mean, if they do subvert expectations, then cool. But like, it just feels like I've watched several shark cage matches that WWE have done in the last like 10 years or so, and they all kind of just follow the same pattern.
Yeah. Remember that weird era where they were doing them like?
Well, because they were selling it. They were selling the toys.
So right, okay.
So yeah. But I think was it like 2 SummerSlams in a row? They had like they'd done like. James Ellsworth was in a shark cage at one point, and Enzo Amore was in a shark cage at another stage. Like, they fuck around with this stuff.
Have they ever done a shark cage thing during Shark Week?
No, AEW did that once, I think.
Yeah, AEW's got the
because they got the Shark Week stuff going on in WBD. So
we had a couple other matches. None of them really matter all that much. Nobody's going to be like, oh my God, did you see the Dragon Lee and Carlito match? How big of a game changer was that? New Day seemed even more so likely to be splitting, with Xavier Woods being so upset at the lack of not winning a singles championship, which is not going to be sitting too well with him about what happened in the main event, because Jey Uso beat Braun Breaker to win the Intercontinental Championship, which makes him the 5th member of the Anoa'i family to win that Intercontinental title. Umaga, The Rock, Roman Reigns, and Rikishi were the other ones that had won that. So, really cool thing for Jey Uso.
He also becomes only the second, father-son pairing to win the IC title, with the only one beforehand being Curtis Axel and Perfect, now Rikishi and Jey Uso.
And I'm wondering if maybe the next person who wins that might be Dominic.
I want it to be Dominic.
So do I. Because at this point, I'm all for Jey Uso winning this. I think that's really cool. But I'm also disappointed that Braun Breaker had such a shitty and quick title reign.
I'm not.
Why is that?
I beat it into the ground in this podcast. I think we need to educate the audience. Short reigns matter. You can have a 52-day reign like Braun Breaker did, and it's fine. You're not going to be buried and never be used again.
I will say I currently have on my predictions that I think that Dom is going to win the Intercontinental Championship from Jey, lose it to maybe Damian Priest, and then we might get Priest versus Breaker at WrestleMania. That is where my current, let me jump ahead many, many months, and it might all change on this next episode of Monday Night Raw type of prediction is. Because I can't think of anything else for Breaker and or Priest to do for Mania. And yeah.
Yeah, I haven't thought that far down the line. I just want Dom to finally get a main roster title.
Yeah, it's very cool for Jey, right?
Oh yeah, I think that the result is important to establish Jey as a guy that can actually get stuff done.
Yeah.
Because I know that the whole gimmick is about main event Jey Uso, and he is a very popular figure on Raw, and the crowd obviously is super behind him. But you need to give him a title like this in order to affirm it in people's minds that, oh yeah, he is going to win stuff and he is going to be a big deal, rather than just always a perennial nearly guy. Because eventually the shine comes off eventually if you don't follow through on positioning him as a big guy. You can't just keep saying he's a main event guy and not have him win anything in the main event. But I mean, I would, again, as a guy not watching, but just from the mindset of how I'd have this work, I would 100% think that Braun Breaker's just winning that title back.
And that's very likely as well.
Because I think it's a good story that you can tell with Braun Breaker as well, in the sense that because the first time he challenged Sami Zayn for the title, he lost. You just tell the story. Braun Breaker has all the tools in the world, but he's still inexperienced. He's still learning. He still makes mistakes, and he's not the finished article yet. But then you just have him figure out a way to beat Jey. So now that he's had the match with him and he's lost, and you give Jey a 2-month long reign. And then eventually Braun's he gets an opportunity, he's figured it out now, he won't make the same mistake twice, and then he beats Jey and becomes champion again. I think there's a way that you can weave it so it adds more to Braun Breaker's character, because he's kind of the long-term vision. Jey Uso is the here and now and super popular, and so should hold a title like this. And it's a good moment to just have it happen on an episode of Raw. But if your long-term vision is to make Braun Breaker a big deal, then use this title defeat as a means to further his development, his progression as a character.
I thought it was just a really good move, and this is something I'd like to see more of from Raw. Oh man, anything can happen. I feel compelled to watch because, hey, maybe the title does change, because everyone was going into that there's no way Breaker's losing it yet.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's good. No, you're wrong. I think that's very important.
Yeah, that's really good for the perception of Monday Night Raw and SmackDown and stuff. But, hey, sometimes the titles do change hands. Pay attention, because I had not planned on writing up a report about him winning that title. I was like, all right, it's going to end with Judgment Day are going to come out, they're going to screw over Jey Uso or something. And then by the time we got around to some of those false finishes, I was like, oh man, they're really selling the idea that he might end up winning this. That's kind of cool, but he's not going to. And then when the final spear and splash combo happened, I was like, mother, are they fucking doing that? Okay, shit. like, credit to them.
Yeah.
I didn't think that it was going to happen, and they got me.
More of that. I had convinced myself he was gonna win because I said, if they don't put it on him here, they kind of make him look like a little bitch. So I don't think they're gonna do that. And was very pleased to see that they did the right thing, in my opinion.
So hopefully Braun Breaker doesn't lose too much steam from this, and hopefully they can turn this into a really good thing for Jey Uso, where Rikishi will be happy about it.
Oh, well, now he's upset that they're what is it, that they're pushing Jacob Fatu too quick?
He's upset about everything, it seems. I don't know. But they gave the belt to the Yeet Man, so come on.
Yeet Man Jones over here.
Yeah. Speaking of Jones, let's get into that. Actually, let's wait for AEW because we got NXT. I totally forgot about. Next week's NXT is going to be a much bigger deal.
Debut on CW. They did not announce that Punk was going to be on the show for a third week, because he'll be on next week as well, but they didn't announce him. So I was surprised, and they were just like, CM Punk's here, by the way. Okay.
I mean, I'm assuming that they recorded that last week. This was just a backstage thing.
Yeah, that is a chance that they could have just done that last week.
Yeah, they did, 3 backstage segments, I think, with him? The one with Sol Ruka and Ethan Page and Trick Williams and all. Or maybe it was only 2. But Kalani Jordan retained her NXT Women's North American Championship over Ren Sinclair. Not much really going on that front. The CM Punk stuff was just backstage talk and, hey, I'm going to call the match down the middle type of special guest referee kind of content. Grayson Waller effect with the Axiom and Nathan Fraser, more of the teasing of the splitting of both of those teams, which we'll have to wait and see if any of that happens. I was curious what happened with Ora Mensa and Lexis King. They had a backstage segment where Lexis King basically kind of seemingly turned babyface. He was saying, hey, my dad was never around, but I want to be the bigger man, and shook hands with Ora Mensa. And during their match, he didn't want to cheat to win. And Ora Mensa did exactly the same thing afterward and cheated to win. And then was like, you fucking nerd. And I guess they're going to try to go babyface with King.
I think they're just going King being a nerd. They need to fix him.
Something needs to change, yeah.
Aura is not in the genes, guys. I gotta tell you, I don't know what it is with Lexis King, but they gotta fix him.
Yeah, that's not something that is looking great for Lexis King, but maybe it'll be the start of something turning around. It seems like they're teasing that Carmen Petrovic might end up with a love angle with Ashanti the Adonis.
She seems like she's into him.
All the people that they've been having him flirt with, that she's the one that they're going to go with. The way that went about, Carmen Petrovic and Brindley Reese were warming up backstage, just casually chatting about who was that girl last week that was gave Ashanti the kiss on the cheek and whatever. Some random blonde girl. I don't know if she's somebody from the Performance Center or she's like an NIL athlete or something, but yeah, that's because I don't pay too much attention to it. But later on in the match against Rosemary and Wendy Chu, Carmen Petrovic decided that she was just going to be way focused on where Ashanti was handing the rose to that same girl, I think. Maybe it's a girl that just looks similar. Again, I don't know. Doesn't matter. Point being, Carmen is more into Ashanti, and it seems like they're going to go in that story going forward, which is not exactly my favorite story, but whatever.
Well, what else do you do with Ashanti?
I just don't think that she's the right choice to be in that role. I like her. I like that there's some potential for something going on and all, but I kind of feel like maybe there would have been some other options that would suit that position a little bit better. Maybe even Brindley Reese, but not necessarily her. I would maybe lean a little bit towards putting another person in there, like I haven't really seen anything from Danny Palmer. Maybe that's the chance to get her on the card. Maybe
the right fit would be Nikita Lyons if she was healthy.
That's never going to be a thing, I guess.
They both have that kind of like vibe of I'm full of myself and I think I'm the hottest thing here. That would be the best fit for him.
Yeah, but she would be, I think, a better pick than Carmen. maybe these other people like the Xena Sterlings and the Lainey Reeds that I don't really know anything about, Layla Diggs, maybe one of them would fit better. I don't think that Carmen's the right choice for it, but at least they're doing something with her. She's got potential. So Hank Tank beat the OC. Who cares? Rich Holland beats Riley Osborne. We all saw that come in. Wesley did a shout out to Gigi Dolan, saying the last bit of brotherly advice that I'm going to give you to Zachary Wentz is don't make sure that Gigi's not watching. That's an interesting way to incorporate that.
Can she come back?
Yeah, where's she been?
She's also knee injury.
Can they just invest in I don't know, knee braces for all these people? Can everybody just wear a knee brace from now on, and then we don't have this fucking problem?
Yeah, that was an interesting segment. They threw a lot of F-bombs.
Yeah, a lot in there. It's kind of funny.
Yeah,
that's the go-to idea where it was just, hey, fuck you.
Hey, fuck you.
Hey, fuck you, you fucking fuck. Lola Vice and Jada Parker are going to go up against Flatulence next week.
Don't do that.
It's going to be a thing going forward. It's Fatal Influence, but it's Flatulence for me.
Tony D'Angelo did his rushed Rocky montage.
Very rushed, yeah.
Complete with boxing, by the way. Why was he fucking boxing?
I mean, we all know that's the only way that you can beat Obafemi is if you box him.
Do you think CM Punk was super confused to see all the Rocky references on the most recent episodes of NXT?
I don't know. I hope they sat him down and said, have you seen Rocky before? Because they did it word for word. That's crazy.
Yeah, that was something to lead into this next bit, where next week they're going to have their contract signing merged with Miz TV. So
I don't like it.
I'm not a fan of that either.
If the Miz is going to be on the show, can't you give Javon Evans a strong win over him, going into Javon Evans literally jumping into an RKO in St. Louis the week after?
Or have the Miz go up against somebody else that could need a little bit of a push or something, have him lose to a Charlie Dempsey, or I don't know, put him in a tag team match against somebody and then put over, hey, I'm teaming with.
Do they have a guy who's got that Miz level energy?
I mean, Lexus King maybe?
No.
I hope for their sake they don't have many people with Miz energy.
There was that one guy who got, was it the 4th of July when they had a guy who just had eggplant emojis all over him and he was hitting on the women and then the women did the shield powerbomb through a table?
Oh, that BJ something or other guy?
Yeah, that guy has Miz energy, but...
I mean, he's very much new Miz. Yeah. Just have Miz beat him up or something. But he's never wrestled on the show yet.
Yeah.
He's part of that next gen thing that was Roku or whatever. I think that was pretty much everything other than the final part of the night, which was Roxanne Perez and Julia having their press conference bit, which I didn't like this press conference thing. I thought it was pretty stupid, but
yeah,
I also was not a fan of how this ended.
Wait, you don't like Stephanie Vaquer on the Titantron?
What I don't like is we're going to continue a press conference, but we're going to put that part in the ring, and then we're going to have very generic promo stuff again. Look, Roxanne Perez is fun to watch in the ring. Promo wise, no. And Julia, there's the language barrier thing. So that gets in the way, especially when it comes to the opposite being you're playing off Roxanne Perez. But then they also add on top of that, the way that they finish this is just Stephanie Vaquer pops up on the Titantron to be like, hey, what's going to happen when I pop up? And then they're like, oh, I don't know. And I'm like, well, you couldn't have figured out a better way to execute that. So maybe Julia doesn't win against Roxanne Perez. Maybe Stephanie Vaquer screws her over or something. And maybe they start a feud. I don't know. But now that they've put that out there, that's more of a chance that it's not going to be a title change than there was prior to it.
Oh, that doesn't change my opinion at all. I think Julia is absolutely beating Roxanne.
She still could. I'm less confident about it now than I was before, though. So at least as far as predictions go for next week and the CW premiere, might as well toss that out. If the title change is going to happen, what happens with the street fight, the title change potential with Ethan Page and Trick Williams. I am currently thinking Trick Williams does win the championship. I think that right now I'm actually leaning a little bit more towards Roxanne retains. And then maybe Julia wins it at like the next pay-per-view or something instead. And I think that Wesley wins the Chicago street fight. And I don't know what the hell Bianca Belair and Jade Cargill are doing, because they didn't even bother to mention them like at all.
They will. Maybe they'll be watching the I call them flatulence. I hate you. Fatal Influence tag match, and they can fight the winner in St. Louis. But outside of that, I think Wesley should win the street fight. I'd like to see Zach win with Gigi Dolan helping him, but I think Wes should win to get his win back, and Zach is still the TNA guy for however long. I do think Julia's going to win, and Trick Williams winning isn't even a question in my mind. It's absolutely happening, and he's going to be the face of the brand until at least Stand and Deliver, maybe even beyond that.
Yeah, so I think I'm pretty much 100% certain Julia's winning the title, because that's the first match that's going to be happening on the CW, so they're doubtless going to put a title change in that one just to get people excited straight away. Wesley should win the match to get a win back, and then it means that you can have a rubber match for the title on the next pay-per-view. And then, you should have Trick Williams beat Ethan Page for the title as well, so just to make it as bombastic an episode as possible.
I'm curious. Shawn Michaels said today that there's going to be a new presentation. I'm curious to see what a new arena setup looks like, if there's a new logo, if there's a new theme song. Wait, is Sexy Red also on the show? Maybe she does the theme song. I don't know.
I'd assume at the very least we're getting an updated logo. We're definitely getting a new intro, definitely a new intro theme, and probably not that crazy of a different setup. And I don't think that the full presentation is going to change all that much. I'm not anticipating it's going to be we're going to get wacky camera angles, or hey, the matches are going to be presented in a different way, and now we're going to have strict time limits for matches and bring that back, which I really wish that they would, because that was such a great way to incorporate a non-finish and not just do the constant everybody always has to win every match by having some kind of interference. Love that about AEW. I don't know why they haven't done that in WWE, but we'll talk about that next week too. Let's round us out with the AEW Dynamite and spoilers for Collision review of Grand Slam. Special episodes on that front too. Very important in a lot of different ways. We started things off with Nigel McGuinness trying to get a 10 count victory over Bryan Danielson when Danielson didn't come out, but Danielson does come out. They end up having a really good match. Danielson retains, everybody isn't retaining, the title was on online, but wins the match by submission. And Christian Cage comes out afterward, ready to cash in his title shot, only for Kip Sabian to steal the pen and run off. So I like the way that they approached the thing with Nigel at the beginning. I liked the match itself. I like that Nigel tapped out. I don't know why people are misinterpreting his fuck you when he was tapping out as a thank you. Why would that make any sense?
Because that's what they said. He said.
Yeah.
And
he didn't. He said fuck you, right?
Callum, what'd you hear?
It was hard to really tell. I honestly could buy it either way. Because the fuck you is obvious because hates Danielson, but it could be a thank you, thank you for just I've been calling you out. Yeah, this is the way that this needed to end. So yeah, I could buy it either way.
I like that they teased the cash in from Christian. I'm not as big of a fan of it just being Kip Sabian steals the pen, but in the grand scheme of things, it really doesn't matter. Overall, this whole segment, 2 thumbs up for me.
Yeah. It was a great match. I like the fact that Nigel was in control for so much of it. like I say, I would have been happy if Nigel would have gotten the victory in this one. It leads somewhere further down the line, but they decided to have Danielson win, but they did it in a way which Nigel looked good throughout it, looked like a strong guy, like the stronger guy in the match for the most part, and Danielson was just clinging on due to the injuries that he'd suffered, but still manages to show the resilience to get the victory. And yeah, I want to see Nigel be full-time now.
Hopefully.
Yeah, okay, so like let's talk about that. Because if this is just, oh, Nigel said thank you, he got his closure, I'm gonna be pretty pissed. Because it really does boil down to, it seems, oh, Nigel just wanted to stop being a wrestler. And like, look, it's the man's life, he can do that, but at the same time, if you can wrestle at that level, fuck, why are you cheating the audience? Why are you cheating yourself out of some banger matches?
Mm-hmm. I not only want to see him continue to wrestle, I want to see him eventually win a championship at some point. Maybe not necessarily the AEW World Championship, but you've got plenty mid-card titles. Play around with that. Make him ROH champion. Make him TNT champion. Like, there's plenty of options. There's one less option than there used to be, though. And that is because the FTW title was on the line right after this, and Hook retained over Roderick Strong. And then afterward, Tony Schiavone brought Hook over and said, hey, a few miles down the road from here, that was where the FTW title was birthed, born, whatever you want to say. That was created. And Hook said, all right, well, you know what? Thank you to everybody that's ever competed for this belt. Thank you to everybody that's been supporting it and all that. But from here on, the FTW championship is retired. And I was starting to write up an article. I was starting to write up an article of just, hey, Hook retained the FTW title, and that's it. And I was like, oh, I have to change that immediately to Hook retires the FTW title. And I am a big fan of this title going away for multiple different reasons, as I've mentioned many times before. It is not a recognized championship, which always seems kind of weird to me. And I know that that's the gimmick, but I just don't like that gimmick. To each their own. You can disagree with me, leave a comment. But I never liked the name, the FTW Championship. I never liked the look of it. I never liked that it was FTW rules, but they sometimes didn't have the FTW rules. I didn't like that this was the fourth mid-card title in a promotion that has, if you count ROH, 6 mid-card titles for the men. And that it was a noose around Hook in a lot of ways. Like, he had to continue to fight for this title because of the lineage behind it. If he would have stopped going for the belt, it wouldn't make any sense. It's his dad's belt. Of course he would want it back, which means that he always has to have that championship. And if he's got that title, there's less of a likelihood that he's going to win any of the other ones. And I like Hook. I think he's got a lot of potential. I do kind of want him to go to NXT in some ways, but in some ways, I think it might be better for him to stay in AEW. It's kind of 50-50. But now this opens him up to, he can finally win one of the other belts. And I think that more than anything else is a positive. It's time to just retire this with Hook and move on.
Yeah, I thought this was a great move. And everything that you just said, I echo. I think he can finally do other things. Maybe, I know there was that report a while ago, but maybe this is him setting up that he does want to explore free agency. But I'm just glad that no matter what, the FTW title has reached its conclusion in AEW.
Yeah, it's probably the smartest move all round. I think that if you are going to proceed with Hook and explore opportunities, he has to kind of be moved on from that title, because it is just so closely attached to him and his family that, like, you can't progress him up the ranks or having to pursue other things without someone always pursuing him for that title or him having to be involved in that title. You couldn't just move the FTW title into just 2 random guys fighting for it. So yeah, it's good that they had him finish it off here, have a good match with Roderick Strong, and like hand it over to Taz to keep hold of from now on. And yeah, but whatever the future kind of holds for Hook, it means that he's got that freedom to explore things without having to constantly have to bring everything back to the FTW title over and over again.
One thing we didn't talk about here is Roderick Strong and the other two members of the Undisputed Kingdom just sort of shook his hand, and we're like, "Yeah, good job, man." What happened there?
I have no idea what they're doing with Strong and everybody.
Well, I think they're going in a slightly different direction with things. I don't know whether it's a case of like it's a full blown like babyface turn, but I think obviously Undisputed Kingdom hasn't worked out because the main guy at the helm of it has not been available to do anything. More recently, like Roderick Strong seemingly formed a bit of a mismatch, but surprisingly effective tag team with the Beast Mortos.
Yeah.
So maybe they just move a bit more into that direction, and maybe they just, maybe not be strict babyfaces, but be more like tweenerish in the approach of things. Maybe, that's like we'd see how it goes really, because I don't think it necessarily benefits them to be like full blown heels at this time being. They're just not. They should just be there to put on some good matches, and they're primarily, especially Bennett and Taven, are primarily like team enhancement guys anyway. And Roderick Strong can do cool things with Mortos.
Wardlow not just sitting around. Knee injury. Matt Taven confirmed that on a podcast, I think yesterday.
And it seems more likely, which I don't know if there's confirmation or not, but it seems like there's more discussion from at least Conan about the Britt Baker Christian affair thing with Adam Cole splitting and all that. Maybe there's
say Christian?
Yeah, that's the story coming out for most of that, is that Britt is with Christian now.
I did not know that. The name I had seen was not Christian, I'll say that. Furthest thing from Christian.
Who was that out there? Because I had only seen Christian.
I had seen something about Hobbs, who's not Christian.
Well, Hobbs is not Christian, no. I mean, he might be Christian, but not Christian Cage. I don't know if he's religion. But that's at least coming out there from Conan or something. So
Conan seems to run his mouth.
Yeah.
But he also seems to
potentially know some stuff. Yeah, so you got to take it with a grain of salt, but it might not be the heaviest grain of salt out there. I don't know. Not the situation I anticipated when we were having that Adam Cole and MJF match at Wembley last year.
No, not at all.
Yeah, odd. But yeah, the FTW title, that is gone now. The World Tag Team Championship match followed that. Young Bucks against Will Ospreay and Kyle Fletcher, where the Young Bucks retained.
Match I've seen in a year.
Very good match. My favorite match of the night. The Young Bucks retained because Will Ospreay and Kyle Fletcher got into a little thing with Don Callis putting the screwdriver in Kyle Fletcher's hand, and Will Ospreay being like, no, we don't want to do that. And then that led to some, shenanigans and all. So Fletcher potentially can see the error of the ways of being tied to Don Callis, or he could be like, hey, fuck you, Will Ospreay. I would have used that screwdriver and we would have won. Either way, could be potentially interesting.
Yeah, they've opened up for different directions, whether it would be feuding with Ospreay moving forward, or whether it be a case of you reform the United Empire and Ospreay's able to get through to him, that Don Callis is like poisoning the well here and like corrupting him in the wrong way. So I think you could almost play a little bit of like have your cake and eat it too, by having like Fletcher go after Ospreay for a little while and have a match for the international title that Ospreay retains. I mean, maybe even go with the route of, because Ospreay's next week going to be fighting Ricochet for the title. So you have Fletcher potentially even cost Ospreay or cause some kind of distraction, which leads to Ricochet winning the title. And then you have Ospreay feud with Fletcher for a little while, but by the end of the feud or in the final match, like that puts them back on the same page, and then that's what separates Fletcher from the Don Callis family for good. And then you have like a fully united Empire. Yeah, exactly. But yeah, just going strictly on the match. The match was just absolutely fantastic. It's one of the best tag matches they've done this year, and it's one of the reasons why it's like, yeah, the Bucks definitely haven't had their most stellar year in general, but you just can never just like write them off, because they will just put out a match like this every now and again and just show you why they are one of the best tag teams of the modern era.
Yeah, they need to drop the gimmick though. Like even more now more than ever, I'm just really into like, hey, never know when your last match is. Can you please give us the Young Bucks that we want in case something happens?
This whole Elite story has just kind of dissipated. I guess they've just given up on it.
I mean, I'm fine with that. Like, if it didn't work, it didn't work. So you just move on, and they're just, holding on to the remnants of it because they can't just completely exit completely. But yeah, it just, I'm just totally fine with them just like entitled to having good matches. But I'm kind of like on the side of they should definitely stay heels. They work well as this sort of like this heel group. As a heel motive rather than going back to the babyface thing, which I thought ended up getting a bit bland at times.
They can stay heels, but they just need to be be the cheeky Young Bucks that people know you to be, not like, oh, we're gonna do this like version of it where we're the EVPs and blah blah blah. Like, I don't know. Like I said, banger match though, best match I've seen from them since this gimmick started.
Then we had a segment where Swerve Strickland's future was addressed by Prince Nana, and he didn't get the chance to say too much. He said Swerve's not ready to return yet, where he was interrupted by MVP making his debut and handing him a card that said not just MVP, but also Hurt Syndicate on it. So there we go about that. So MVP is blaming blaming Prince Nana for Swerve's lack of continuation on his 8-month great streak that he had going on, where it's like, well, why is the guy who burned his house down still not like in the infirmary, I think is what he had said. Why is the guy that beat him for the championship walking around and smiling about it and laughing? Like, what the hell are you doing if you are focusing more on dancing around and selling shit and not actually being a proper manager? And I fucking loved that. I thought that was great. So I'm down for either Swerve versus Bobby Lashley. And it's like, okay, Lashley comes in as MVP's guy and we get that kind of feud. Or Swerve joins MVP. Either way, I'm down for it.
I mean, I thought the segment was really good. Again, I had my reservations about the Hurt Syndicate coming into AEW, more just along the lines of it's just another group of old guys coming into the company and just taking up spots on the roster. But with the right framing, this could work out really well. I certainly would not break up the Strickland and Prince Nana act. I think there's just too much goodwill attached to it. I think it's still got legs to it. I certainly wouldn't turn Swerve heel. I think he's just too over now as a top guy, and there's still all the stuff with Hangman Page to deal with when like the time is right to return to it. But using it as a vehicle to bring Lashley in, potentially bring Shelton Benjamin in if they'd want to do a more united Hurt Syndicate and potentially bring someone or multiple people from AEW, the current AEW roster, into it, then yeah, as I say, it has potential. And this was a very good first segment to like add a bit of spice into, oh, this could go in multiple different directions, and let's see how the story plays out.
If you guys were fantasy booking, creating people that can go into a Hurt Syndicate, anybody stand out to you that you would put on the roster? Because there's a couple names to me that I'd be like, I think you could look into putting Hobbs in there.
Hobbs is an immediate one that stood out.
I think you've got, like, right now I wouldn't mess around with like some people that already are doing stuff. Like I wouldn't put like Brian Keith in there. I don't think I'd bother to put in like a Lee Moriarty or something. But
well, and also, and again, it's just like, this is just my type of thinking with this as well. I don't want it to just exclusively be black guys.
It doesn't have to be unless
but everyone leans towards that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But do they want it to?
If they want it to be, then that's totally up to them if that's the case. But it's a case of there are people within the company that could slot into that role. And say if that's what they want to do, then that's totally fine. But I just feel like we shouldn't just like pigeonhole it that way but as I say, if that's what they want to do, then they're totally within their rights to go that way.
I know
But if you are,
Ricochet was up for the spot in WWE. He's in AEW now.
Who was?
Ricochet.
Ricochet? Yeah, like based
Yeah.
off of what they did in TNA and in WWE, where it was just strictly black guys on there.
Low key was in there, I think.
well, that was in the TNA version of it, yeah.
So like they could be just approaching it from that angle, and that's up to them to make that decision if they want to or whatever. But like there are definitely people that are and aren't black wrestlers in AEW that could fit, and there are black wrestlers for that matter in AEW that wouldn't fit that at all. Like I would not put Keith Lee in there. I would not put Private Party in there.
No.
Just because
I'd put Keith Lee anywhere if he was healthy.
I mean, if he was healthy, a completely different story. But like,
I can see some people like potentially let's say you've already got Shane Taylor Promotion, so I don't know if you would necessarily put them and mold them into the Hurt Syndicate, but they could kind of work in that role.
Ancillary members or something.
Yeah, absolutely. Like have it as like being like an extension of that. I mean, I've kind of been like getting to bat for someone like Josh Woods recently because I've been liking the stuff he's been doing on Ring of Honor, and I feel like he has the physicality and the same sort of style of a Bobby Lashley to go into there. But yeah, I mean, I don't know how far along like a guy like EJ Nduka is in his development, whether that could be like because he definitely has at least the presence and the size to be in a group like that. I just don't know if his wrestling ability is up to the standard that would necessarily need to be. But yeah, I mean, it's difficult to tell really because a lot of the guys in AEW are already in either factions or groups. A lot of them are, and a lot of them just don't fit into the Syndicate thing. Like you can't put hologram onto like a Syndicate group. So yeah, maybe there's some people outside of things. Like I've heard things like I've wanted like Kevin Knight to make the step up to like one of the bigger promotions in recent times. I think he's done a lot of good work in like New Japan's junior division, and he's done some stuff in TNA as well. So he might be a cool guy. I mean, Ricochet makes a lot of sense. It's like, what a great way to, if they were to put him into that, to just be like a shifting character for him, from just to really distinguish him from what he's doing in WWE. Just not that it wouldn't be totally fine to just do Ricochet in AEW, but it'd be a case of, oh, that's a good way to.
He's different.
Make him different to what he was doing in WWE. Like immediately, he's a heel. He was never a heel in WWE. So yeah, as I say, I think there's lots of potential of people both within the company now and without it. I mean, look at some trying to introduce some women into that as well, like a Layla Hirsch or obviously Ring Fit. Yeah, Athena would be a good choice for that one as well. Or Diamante, people like that have that more of that edginess to them. So yeah, obviously you've got Marine Shafir as part of the I guess the new formation of the BCC or whatever they're going to refer to themselves as. But yeah, I'd say there are openings in there. So yeah, I'm going to give the Hurt Syndicate a chance. I'm just like always going to. It's kind of like the same reservation that I had when Adam Copeland joined and he blew me out of the water. So hopefully that had the same effect here.
Yeah, I was a little surprised Lashley didn't immediately come up and put Nana on the Hurt Lock, but I'm sure Lashley's on his way, and I think that's okay. I do understand the conversation is ramping up about, hey, there's getting to be a lot of these spots on this roster taken up by, older guys, and that is a problem, mostly because AEW was promised to be this great alternative more than anything else.
That goes back to what we've talked about before. The beginning of AEW is definitely a different company than what it is now. Yeah. Some ways better, some ways worse. Speaking of heading towards a worse direction, Mariah May defeated Yuka Sakazaki to retain the Women's World Championship. Worst match of the card, and the least impactful segment overall for me, because what does it lead into? It's okay. Clearly, Mariah May is going to retain. And then it's she's going to beat down Yuka Sakazaki afterward, and Willow Nightingale comes out to be like, hey, no, stop. Only for Mina Shirakawa's theme to hit, so Willow turns around, Mariah May hits her and runs off, And then Shirakawa's confused, and Yuka Sakazaki's there like, oh, well, do I want to hit you? No, I guess not. I don't know. This whole thing was clunky and stupid. I didn't like it at all. And it's like, all right, just do the tag match and then just do the match that matters more and do Mariah versus Willow. Like, I'll pay attention when they have that match. But I didn't like this at all.
I like Willow being inserted into this picture, but I understand your frustration.
I like Willow.
Willow thing is the best thing about it, her being in the title picture, but it's more just like Mariah May continues to underwhelm in this role. And
how is Mercedes not on this show? I'm gonna say it again. They keep hyping her up. It's like, oh, this big signing, big money. This is your big money show. Why the fuck isn't she on it?
But Okada wasn't on it either, so it's like that's like they've decided that they just
at least he's on the Saturday show.
Yeah. I'd say she definitely should have been on. I mean, she was there because they did some things with like Tony Khan and her at the end of the show, like that her's coming out. So she was there. So they just decided not to put her on either card.
So weird to me.
Yeah, but it is more of a case of I think the perception of the whole Mariah May thing and the whole angle thing. I think things would shift entirely, like do a whole 180 if the titles were switched.
Oh, it's definitely the mid-card title and all.
Yeah, like if this was the mid-card title, I don't think anyone would be as kind of critical about all the stuff that's going on here. Like, it wouldn't make the things that they're doing here instantly good, but people would be less like, oh, it's the TBS title, or it's like, well, it's the mid-card thing, and they're doing some more character-based work here, and the main title's on Mercedes, and that's where the money is. So, like, yeah, the fact the titles are just on the wrong people.
Mm-hmm.
And with this one, like, they're telling some kind of story about how Mariah May is wanting to get like back together with Mina Shirakawa as a team, and Mina's a little bit unsure about where Mariah stands and how Mariah's behaving, but is going to go along with it because she's still friends with Mariah. And then Willow's going to be pursuing the title off the back of this. My bigger kind of question about all of that is, where's Chris Statlander? Because again,
won the match.
Yeah, because that's the whole stupid thing. It's like one thing that I never wanted from AEW is for wins and losses not to matter. To like just to go to that area. Like if you had like the vision in your mind that Willow Nightingale is going to be the person that's going to challenge and maybe eventually beat Mariah May for the world title down the line, then you should have just had her win the match against Chris Statlander at the pay-per-view, because then she's on the right trajectory. Whereas instead, now we've just got a situation where she lost that match at that show, and she's now the one that's going after Mariah May and has been on TV multiple times afterwards, and we haven't actually seen Chris Statlander at all since she won that match. So you shouldn't be doing that. It's a really, really just backwards booking philosophy.
Yeah, not a fan. And then Jack Perry, I'm looking at the other thing that I'm going to talk about in a minute. Darby Allin lost his title shot to Jon Moxley, and afterward Bryan Danielson came out, said he's going to kick his fucking head in. We got that confirmed for Wrestle Dream. So we will talk about this with some prediction type stuff, but I'm not going to be on the prediction podcast for Wrestle Dream. So maybe my opinion changes over the course of this a little bit, but I am going to say right now, I am leaning towards the idea that Jon Moxley beats Bryan Danielson at Wrestle Dream.
I hope not. I want to see. I thought Bryan was going to be done, so I thought it was going to be whoever faces him at Wrestle Dream just wins, and maybe that's the case here, and maybe it's just, hey, Bryan's got to go, but I'm hoping Bryan beats Mox, sticks around for a little longer, loses it to Darby, who then is probably the guy who gets immediately fucked over by Christian.
Yeah, I mean, it's a weird kind of, they put themselves into a bit of a corner here, which is like, they can get their way out of it, but it's a case of Moxley probably shouldn't be losing in this new gimmick and new iteration of his character right now. But in the same token, it doesn't feel like they've built up enough about the fact that this could be Danielson's last match ever. Because as soon as he loses the title, that's basically it to his full-time wrestling career. And it just doesn't feel like it's that at the moment. I mean, they've got 2 weeks. Maybe in the next 2 weeks they do sum up that feeling, and it does feels a bit more natural and right. They're doing it, but right now it just doesn't feel like the right time to end this run for Danielson. I feel like they should extend it out towards World's End, but for that to happen, obviously he needs to beat Moxley and retain. So I'm not sure one way or the other, which in some ways is a good thing because it's a bit more unpredictable. So I will want to watch the match and check out how they go about resolving this issue. But for now, if you were to ask me right now, I'd say that Danielson retains.
Yeah, I agree.
I'm leaning towards the idea that he loses the title, and that's when they keep saying when he loses, his full-time career is over. And that just means that he still wrestles a couple more matches, and he probably puts over Darby Allin in a number 1 contenders match, and then Darby Allin beats Moxley.
I think that makes the idea of him like retiring after losing the title, or like the whole thing about him talking about him losing the title just like devalues it immediately if he just has another match pretty soon afterwards.
Oh, I don't think that like doesn't devalue it, but that's my prediction. That's not how I would book it. I'm saying, but they keep kind of reiterating this idea of his full-time wrestling career ends, and it's you're specifying that more. I
don't for one second think that whenever Danielson loses that title, that's his last match ever. I just think they'll just wait 6 months to a year before they have his next match happen.
It could be that too. I mean, maybe it could be Danielson loses the belt to Moxley. Allen gets a shot, beats Moxley, gets screwed over by Christian. They do something like that, and then however many months after he gets some surgery and he comes back, maybe it's like, I want to have my last match against Darby Allin. Could be that. Could be a lot of different things, but that's the Dynamite side of it. Now, we do have spoilers for Collision. So if anybody doesn't want to know what happens on Collision, this is the last topic we're talking about. So you know the plugs. Adios. See you later, kind of a thing. But we are going to get into the Collision spoilers. So warning for anybody who doesn't want to know. Not that there's like super crazy stuff that happens on there, to be perfectly honest, but yeah, maybe you don't want to know spoilers. So the reports that I had seen, some of them were really like struggling to get those reports out there, but eventually it seems like we got it all. Jack Perry retained the AEW TNT Championship over Minoru Suzuki, and they actually recorded that before the episode of Dynamite, which is kind of interesting that they bothered to do it like that. Tornado Trios tag match. Learning Tree beat the Conglomeration. Rocky Romero, by the way, is an official member of Conglomeration now. Brody King beats Action Andretti, and it seems like Action Andretti and Leo Rush had some kind of an issue with each other after the match. The Saraya's Rules match was, of course, won by Jamie Hayter. Hangman Adam Page beat Jeff Jarrett in the Lumberjack Strap match. The World Trios Championship match. This was kind of interesting for me to read. Pac in the Blackpool Combat Club just beat Commander and Private Party, and it doesn't seem like anything happened with this. Nobody reported on any and Wheeler Yuta had this thing going on or something happened with this. But it seems like it's just a match, which that's as flat and boring and uninteresting as you can get to. It's just, hey, the people that we beat up, it's them and another guy that we beat up, and we just beat them up. All right. Hologram beats the Beast Mortos and Dralistico, and it seems like Dralistico and Beast Mortos are now in a team with Roosh, which I thought was funny that some people were reporting out there. Beast Mortos turned heel. What?
I mean, you know that babyface, Beast Mortos.
Yeah, like since when was he a babyface? Now, I know that I don't have an AEW tracker on smartcombo.com because that would be fucking madness if I did, because they don't have the same adherence to babyface and heels WWE does, but I don't think that he was a babyface before that, guys. So, I don't know what was going on there. Something happens with the MXM collection, not XMM, where they were revealing the makeover that they gave to Max Caster's jacket, and it's just, they get attacked by the Acclaim. Doesn't seem like it's really all that great of a segment. And Sammy Guevara loses his eliminator match against Kazuchika Okada, which we all kind of saw coming from a mile away.
Jeez, really? I thought maybe so we could have Okada on the other Dynamite. Wow, that sucks.
Yeah,
Who won between Hater and Saraya? I can't remember if you said Hater won.
Hater.
I'm sure Hater won, but yeah, okay. I had seen some leaks that there was a rapid decline in quality from one show to the other. And
I've
it
seen a
kinda sounds
lot
like
of people reporting how many people were leaving during certain matches too. Because apparently the Okada and Guevara match didn't even start until after midnight.
Yeah, from what I've heard from people that have like checked out the collision show live in the building, said that show pretty much sucked.
Stop doing that to your audience. Stop making them stick
9
around.
fucking hours long.
Yeah, stop. Like, and yeah.
Oh, sickos though.
And honestly, like, I know we're completely far removed from the moment in time where we thought Collision and Dynamite were going to be two separate shows, but probably some of that would be beneficial when it's like, is there an excitement to stay for Collision so I can watch Okada? I kind of just wish he was on the live Dynamite.
Yeah, so after reading these results, I don't think I'm going to bother to check out Collision. I think I'll utilize my time on Saturday night to do something else instead. But I thought the Dynamite was good. So
I thought Dynamite was great. I thought this was one of the best Dynamites of the year.
Now next week we have the 5-year anniversary. We got the Ricochet and Will Ospreay match, and we've got, was it Britt Baker against Serena Deeb or something, I think?
Yeah, that's the match they've announced.
Yeah, just a match. So Ricochet and Ospreay will be good. And,
Well, it's not just a match. It's the first time we're seeing Baker since the Mercedes thing in there in Pittsburgh. That'll be interesting. I would like to hope, since it's been a full year, that Adam Cole is somewhere near ready to return. I don't care where he goes. I know that you guys had brought up the stuff earlier about Baker and all that. I don't care where he goes. I just need to know that he's healthy. I know I'm never getting NXT Adam Cole back again, but I'd like Adam Cole to wrestle.
What if he's only wrestling in NWA?
No. Well, actually, no, I can't say that. They're running 15 minutes from my house. If he wants to wrestle for the NWA, I'll go to every show.
Well, they were that close to you. How many of those shows have you seen?
Well, that's only starting in October.
Oh, okay. Well,
but still 0.
That's that's the hot tags for episode 669. Everybody leave your comments below. Tell us what you thought about any of these topics and anything else that we wanted to talk about that we didn't. Leave those thoughts in the comments too. Make sure that you're staying tuned for the next things that are going to be popping up your way, which I believe the next thing that is going to be airing is going to be the Darkcast for October on October 1st. I actually recorded that last night, or 3 a.m. or whatever it was that I was recording that. That's my tier list of every single pay-per-view and TV show and special event name in the history of WWE, AEW, ECW, and WCW. So it's like 390 things or something that I ranked on that. And yeah, that was a little bit harder than I thought it was going to be. But we got that. I am going to be recording in advance the Halloween Havoc card that I have set up. Now that is going to be set up where you're going to get early access to that. Whenever I record that, I'm going to upload it then. And then it'll go live on the 18th or something of October, but just haven't recorded it yet. And next week we do have another round of the hot tags. We'd also have our Bad Blood predictions and the Bad Blood post show on October 5th. So stay tuned for those things. Keep all that in mind.
When are you going? Like
the 7th.
When do you travel? Oh, okay.
So just squeezing in Bad Blood, and then packing and doing all that. And that's gonna be stressful, but yeah, it is what it is. It's 2024. So if you want to share your support, you know how to do it. If you want to bounce around on all the different things on smarkandmomo.com or fanboysanonymous.com or the other things on the link tree, just go to anthemango.com or amangotree.com and you will find links to all sorts of different things there. And if you're following not only my stuff, but you're following the other guys, then check out what Rob and Callum are up to.
Yep. Find me on Fightful.com. Check out Dude Felice for all of my social media. And thank you for any support, because it really does mean a lot to me. And check out what Callum's got going on.
You can find me on Twitter at Wigmeister14. You can check out the Power Rankings over on smarkatmoment.com every Saturday, where I rank the WWE superstars based on their previous week's performances. And then while you're over there, head to the Fantasy League, also at www.fantasyleague.com, to see how our rosters are doing, who is continuing to pick up points as we head towards Bad Blood, where will be the next little rest stop, where we'll be reconfiguring our teams a little bit. And just continue to follow that along all the way up until WrestleMania.
Okay, everybody, that is it for this episode of the Hot Tags. Thank you for your support. Thank you for listening. Thank you for your comments. Thank you for anything else along those lines. And we will see you next time. But for now, this has been another Smark Out moment. And we are being counted out.